it anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you. And can you pop the link over to me via email and I'll open it just in case.
Hello. Hey, Steve.
Should be near new office. Morning, Steve. How you doing?
Okay, because the numbers we approved are different from what's here now, so it's,
We'll touch base with that.
there's like $30,000 office line where it goes.
Kim, do you want me to try to get you in there, or?
I guess I could have done that. I just know sometimes I get click happy and I'm not patient enough.
Just odd that it's not giving you anything else.
Oh, pop-up block. I must have,
Oh, that might be it.
that's it.
You may have to reboot again, or refresh.
Refresh again. That looks promising.
Pop something up.
Yeah. I need to invest in a better laptop. This one was old when I got it.
Yeah, it's a little slow.
Yeah.
Let's see what that says right there. Allow, yeah.
Gonna allow, but I'll make sure I don't join the audio.
What the advisory including basically select
Okay, yep.
No audio, no. That way I can at least watch it.
And for subsequent meetings, I can set up a admin access so that you can see a lot of stuff and whatnot. So.
That's fine. This will work for today. Thank you.
All right, so, but- Right, that explains at least the.
So you don't need to make a donation now.
No, but at least, I mean,
I'm going to turn this mic on if that's okay.
That's
So I don't
perfectly
have to run
fine.
off during the meeting.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm going to record this meeting. I'm going to record this meeting.
Okay, thank you for the notification. All right, so good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, May 15th, Town of Brookfield Select Board meeting. Please rise and say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, a few announcements. The first one is that congratulations, Ron, it's a year, I believe, essentially
Survived,
to the
yeah.
day. Well done, my good friend.
My parole hearing is soon. So.
Fair enough. Don't make jokes about stuff like that. There's some history there.
Oh, jeez.
So, the other is I'd like to welcome Sarah Campbell to the board.
Thank you.
So, congratulations on your election. Usually, actually, they give me the full docket of everybody who was elected first meeting post-election as part of the announcements, but
No, I'm sorry, I didn't include that.
Okay.
I didn't realize, I mean, it,
that's okay.
I can get it for you.
That's fine. Then the other announcement is that the public is invited to attend a budget presentation for the FY26 budget, which will be voted on at the June 5th annual town meeting. The presentation is set for 6:30 on Thursday, May 22nd at Brookfield Elementary School cafeteria and gym. A select board meeting set for 6 p.m. will precede the presentation. Any other announcements?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. All right, do you want to cover the warrants?
Certainly, yep. We have two warrants before us this evening. First one is for fiscal year 25-23, an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $179,284.60. And the other is a payroll warrant in the amount of $210,975.25.
Great, thank you for that. Any questions regarding the warrants? All right, I'm going to take today's agenda out of order. Let's start with Mr. Wilcox, Lincoln Street Extension discussion.
I'm going to make a motion that we don't take it out of order and that we start with number 1.
I guess you can do that, but typically it's the purview of whoever's chairing the meeting what order to go the agenda, but procedurally, I don't know that there's a basis for it.
Well, I think it's customary to reorganize the board as the first agenda item.
Yeah, usually if there's going to be a change in the agenda, it's with the consent of the board.
Okay, all right, so let's start then with reorganizing the select board. Do we have a motion for chair?
I'll make a motion to make Rich Chafee chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, so discussion. Usual and customary is that we've rotated this board. The one time that we had not rotated the board was when Mr. Comtois was chair for, I believe, 6 years straight, and when Ms. Lincoln was chair for, I believe, was it?
Could even be 9. She was chair.
No, it wasn't that
Six, and
long.
it was 6.
I think it was 4 or 5, yeah. And I don't know that it was really advantageous to the town or the committee or the board, but you've got a motion and a second. Anyone
Well-
else want to speak to it?
Yeah, I would like to speak. So, for the last year, whenever Brad was the chair, I pretty much had the ability to put anything I wanted on the agenda. As a result of you being left over as co-chair, I was told that I couldn't put anything on the agenda until it went through you first, and then Karen had made several attempts to contact me, so I don't think that was the right way. But I will pledge, for the most part, if I am chair, that you won't have to ask me to put anything on the board. You will more than likely have the authority to go ahead and do it. You won't need my permission, even though that would be the authority of the chair. But I don't think it was appropriate for the couple days that you were left over as vice chair to then dictate whether anything got put on the agenda had to go through you first. So I wasn't happy with that. So as a result, I'm happy to take the position.
So was anything that you requested to be put on the agenda denied?
I didn't dare ask anything else because I was told I had to go through you first. So I thought I would just wait and see what happens.
Okay, so,
That you were very clear and very strict.
Yes, I told him that as the chair, that it has, that I wouldn't post anything unless it went through you, and that's what we did with
absolutely,
Brad too.
and one of the reasons, that is what you did with Brad as well.
Yes,
Okay. It just wasn't communicated as clearly, Mr. Chafee. The other thing is that Brad was very disappointed on a number of occasions when items were placed on the agenda.
I don't think
and
you
he
should
didn't
speak
give-
to Brad right now. I don't think
Oh,
that's
okay.
appropriate at all.
Okay. He expressed some concerns in open meeting regarding not getting the information relative to the agenda items prior to
I didn't miss
the night of the
any,
meeting.
I didn't miss any meetings in the last year, and if he was talking to you, maybe it shouldn't have happened, because I never had that conversation. I've never heard him say that, and I have not missed a single meeting. So were those conversations at open meetings, or were they in private?
Mr. Chafee.
I'm
They
just
were-
asking a point,
It was
because
not a private
I was
conversation. It was
at
not
every
a
meeting.
private
All
conversation.
right, let's move on. The motion was made, there was a second. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna do a roll call vote or not? I don't wanna discuss, like, there's nothing to discuss.
Okay.
If you want me to be very blunt, I agree with Mr. Chafee. The same comment was made to me. And as this being my first meeting, yeah, why would I bother putting something on the agenda or taking the initiative if,
Okay, so that's fine.
I just don't like the comment. I don't think it was very necessary, and
So that's fine. Let me just share with you. I'm going to share with y'all some information, and then we'll vote. Okay. And that information is we are going to be going over the full warrant. We're going to be going over the full budget. We already had a very full agenda for the amount of time that we have. It is up to the chair to decide what goes on the agenda, in part to make sure that we're allocating adequate time to appropriately address any of the topics that are brought forward. Okay. That said, I think this decision was made probably before the election, so let's go ahead and all in favor.
Beth, you can
All
throw a
in
low
favor.
shot out there. You don't determine when discussion's over, right? I mean, I get to discuss. You asked for discussion. So let's discuss. But a low blow like that isn't necessary. Let's just,
if you want me to
obviously,
be honest, yes, I do too. I get your point. I have concerns about Mr. Chafee being chair too. You want me to be honest? Yes. So for you to say that the decision was made before the election, no, it wasn't. And second, you didn't take the initiative to have a conversation with me before the election, during the election, at any point in time. You were betting on somebody else to win, which is fine, but you could have taken the initiative 2 seconds after I won to come up with me and have the conversation. You didn't. You chose not to.
No, I shook your hand and congratulated you.
That was it. That was the end of the conversation. But you've never, prior to any of this, we've never had a single conversation. You've never took it upon yourself to reach out to me during the election, and nothing. So my point is yes, I agree. I have concerns with Rich being chair too. But at the end of the day, the control, it's the control aspect. You went and had a meeting with Ron and made the comment that you were in control of the agenda. So my question is why was the comment made? Yes, you were the chair, but I'm on 3 other boards. Steve is allowed to put anything on the Conservation Commission agenda. I am too. So I guess why was the comment made? And that's my concern. It's about control. I have concerns about the control. And in the future, am I going to be allowed to put something on the agenda?
I've already made it my pledge, Beth, to allow you to put anything you want on the agenda. I wish you had not taken the stance you did, because I was all prepared to make you the chair. You've been here 8 years. You're highly intelligent. You know the process very well. I'm not necessarily looking to be the chair. However, I don't want to have to worry about whether I can put something on the agenda going forward. So I'm not willing to risk that based on your decision the other day. So, and you're right. You know what? Sarah is right. You bet on the wrong horse, right? Had you put a little initiative in, maybe you would have had the alliance. But there's no doubt in my mind, if the person you supported was sitting here, you would be the chair, and I'd be the odd person out. So that's
what's the
just the way the
difference?
cookie crumbles in this case. So let's move on.
Guess we have a
And
comment.
someone's online too, sorry. Jacob, yeah,
Go ahead. So who was up first?
the person online.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
So, under Massachusetts open meeting law, the agenda must list a list of topics that the chair reasonably anticipates that we have to discuss. That's under the CMR 29.3, I believe it is. It is always customary that the chair sets the agenda. And I find it ironic that Rick Chafee sits in this meeting, because when Maureen Peck was running the Board of Health meeting and setting up rules and setting up public comment policy, Rick told me just to shut up because she runs the meeting. It is customary that the chair sets the agenda and then runs the meeting. That is customary across courts, and it's actually the open meeting law. The list of topics that the chair reasonably anticipates. An agenda item can be added by the chair or to a motion. So if the chair doesn't add something, the members of the board say, I'd like to make a motion, we put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Hopefully the chair follows that. I've seen cases with some boards that just completely ignore it, even after the majority vote. But it is the chair that sets the agenda. That's the law. And I just find it, I don't know, it's disappointing to see what you guys are debating right now, because that's the law. That's what we see in other boards. Next.
Steve.
I just wanted to speak to Sarah's comment about the Conservation Commission and my participation on creating the agendas. That is an agreement that we made as a board because the chair was willing to give up that responsibility based on his bandwidth. So I think if the board does have a reason to delegate that responsibility, I see no fault in it so long as the chair gives that blessing. What Chris said, I think, is true, that it is the chair's jurisdiction to define the agenda. But I think in addition to that, the chair can do what is best for the board to come to a collaborative decision that works for the entire board. And what I'm seeing right here is immediate dysfunction behind the scenes, and some of it might be behind the scenes from conversations that the public is not privy to. But it seems like there is deep mistrust, and I think the entire public would like to see a more constructive board. So starting off on the wrong foot is a bad sign, and I don't know. That's all I want to say. But please work together. Thank you.
Steve, to your point, I pledged here this evening that if Beth has something to put on the agenda, she's not going to have to worry about it. She's going to be able to put it on the agenda. So I think that is working and taking the first step forward. So thank you for your input.
Anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Rich Chafee, aye.
Sarah Campbell, aye.
Beth Coughlin, no. I'll go with it. did not need to be a roll call, but there you go.
Thank you.
You want the verbiage in case you need executive session, or are you good for tonight?
I don't think we're going to need it this evening, but in case I do, I will definitely ask you for it, because I intend to run this meeting with full participation from each member. I will not try to silence anyone. So, number 2 on the agenda is the Senior Center Community
Actually,
Study.
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
We currently have a vacant vice chair position.
Oh,
Do
I
you-
apologize.
Or potential. I mean, I guess technically, as of right now, yes, we do have a vice chair.
Okay. I'll nominate, I move to make Beth Coughlin vice chair.
I second.
All in favor? Or any discussion?
No discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll make a motion that Sarah be the clerk.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Ron. I'm sure I'll need a little assistance from time to time, so I appreciate if you pipe right in anytime.
Yeah, I've got a year under my belt now.
All right. So, the Senior Community Center Study Committee discussion. I'm assuming, Dawn, are you here for that, or are you just for other items? If you are, I'd like you to take the lead.
I believe it was my recommendation to the board for the warrant on the annual town meeting last year to put an article on in support of a study committee for a senior center. I think that's warranted. We are one of only, I believe, 2 or 3 communities in all of Worcester County that do not have a senior center in their town. I think that a committee put together to investigate options, possibilities, it's not going to cost any money to do, and I know this town studies everything 4 times. But I don't think that we have, other than the study committee, study to put the senior center in the basement of the town hall, got negative response. I think now it's time to move on and look at something else. I would
And
ask,
actually-
I'm sorry?
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. So,
I would ask that the Board of Selectmen develop a charge and form a committee of 5 people to study options for a senior center for the citizens of Brookfield. That's it.
So, go ahead, Beth, if you want to go first, because I did have a question.
yeah, I have a couple things. One is that actually the last committee that we had relative to that was a citizen action committee. It wasn't a select board delegated committee that took a look at actually, I think, at 5 properties. And then came back with-
It was a number of people. I was on
Yeah.
that committee. It was formed because town-owned properties were going to be put on auction.
Yep.
And the intent was to look to see if there were any of those properties that were suitable or could be suitable for a senior center. We did not study, other options, really. It was just to look at those properties.
Okay.
Yep.
So the old study that was put together, Beth, I'm assuming you were probably privy to it. There were 2 different sites in the study that's in our packet.
Mm-hmm.
One was the basement, one was Hayden Hyde Street
Yep.
property. Why was that not considered? Do you know?
So at the time, the citizen committee that did the study, right? And it wasn't really a formal study. It was call it more a citizen survey of the property. What their recommendation was to the board at the time was that we needed to build up our senior programs first and then determine the real, define the scope of the need so that when we did go ahead and potentially pursue a senior center, that we were pursuing the right space for the right activities, and that there was enough engagement with the community to warrant the expense of pursuing a senior center, was the recommendation that came back from the team that looked at those properties.
Okay.
Since then, I would say, based on what I've seen from the Council on the Aging and the new directors, is that they have grown the programs to the point where now we really do need to seriously consider housing it. Now, one of the conversations that I had with Ron was that obviously if we're going to do something like that, we'd want to maximize our opportunities for grant monies. And right now, the construct that tends to work the most beneficial construct for pursuing those monies, I was trying to turn that into an adjective and it wasn't going to work, is to go for a community center construct with either some portion of the space dedicated to seniors or some portion of the schedule dedicated to seniors. So you can have a shared space that maybe during daytime hours acts as a senior center, and maybe in the evening acts as like a community center for mostly like youth and other program activities. But fundamentally at town meeting, what the vote was that we were to set up the committee. We haven't set up the committee yet. We got distracted with other things. That's why one of the asks I had, and I don't think it made it onto the agenda tonight, and so I think we need to probably have it for either the meeting before the budget meeting, or if we meet on the 29th, I'd like to see it on there, is all of the votes from the last, and this should sound familiar, I asked for all of the votes of the last 5 years to see what we have and haven't executed against what the townspeople have asked for. So this committee, to determine, now that we had decided and built up the senior programs to the point that we need to really seriously consider a dedicated facility, was one of those things the town meeting basically directed us to do that we haven't done.
So I have a couple questions. Do you attend regularly to the seniors when they meet?
I am not on the Council on Aging. I attend many of the events, and I help out with the events.
So I don't have a good understanding.
Mary
how-
Lou is on the Council on Aging, and she can speak to the increased activity and participation.
I could
So-
speak to it just
so-
from the parking.
Would you mind coming up, Mary Lou?
Before you do that,
I'm sorry.
I would recommend, as Beth mentioned, considering a senior center / or community center that might get more traction.
Okay, thank you.
Rich, this is some of the stuff
That's in your packet, that Lois made a list of all the current programs.
Okay. So I didn't look at this prior, so I apologize. So, Mary Lou, how many days a week are the seniors coming to events at the church?
I'm Mary Lou Knight. I'm on the Council on Aging. I've also been on 2 study committees for the seniors. All right. We currently operate under the good graces of the Congregational Church. It's difficult not to have a dedicated space. We operate 3 days a week. Mondays, we do 2 different exercise classes. Tuesdays, we have chair yoga. We have a coffee hour. We usually have a program. Wednesday, there's a walking group that just doesn't need a space. Thursdays, we have 2 different exercise programs. We're a town of about 3,500. We have over 1,100 seniors. At this point of the year, in approximately 10 months, we've had 181 individual participants. Those participants have been active in over 2,500 events. We have a 12-hour-a-week director, which is minimal. It's time. It's more than time. I've been on the different committees. We talked about the basement area. It's not big enough. It is just not big enough. Parking is difficult. Access is difficult. So And in the course of being on the Council on Aging, I've visited senior centers in about 6 different towns. The most reasonable option is the senior center in West Brookfield, as far as size. It's not big enough to do 2 foot clinics a month, a nurse who comes and does blood pressure, does glucose. There's no private area over there. So we'd be looking for something a little larger than that and a dedicated space. It's difficult not to be able to leave things out or to have available storage. Questions?
So have you guys asked to use the town hall on Fridays? Is that an option going forward for overflow from the church so that?
We don't do anything currently on Fridays. It would be an option only on Friday because during the week,
Sure.
this room is not
Right.
conducive to activities.
But would Fridays be an option until you guys could,
If we had more hours for a director,
oh, so you don't even have enough hours for a director to go forward?
no. We have 12 hours a week. If she's present 3 mornings a week, that takes up the 12 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're looking at expanding any further. And we just found out that one of our board of directors uses her hours for her tax write-off, and that's not going to be allowed anymore because she's on the board of directors. I mean, it's tough enough to get people to volunteer
Sure.
without making it more difficult.
I guess my initial thought is the cost, and I don't know how we would ever pay for a senior center with the rise in taxes, and the only way we could ever afford it is with a grant, and I don't
Correct.
know that the grant is going to cover the whole senior center, never mind the operational costs, the heat, the running of it annually, that it's a big number. So one way I thought to help defray some of that cost was use this building on Fridays, and if we had to pay a little extra for the director to work more hours, that wouldn't even begin to bite into the interest that we would pay alone on building of the senior center. So if we could utilize this space, this holds an awful lot of people, I think that would be, this could handle the overflow, but I'm not suggesting we don't start with the committee, but I thought this would serve as a need possibly.
We pass a school budget every year.
No one even questions.
9 million, no question, no problem. Get 1,100 plus seniors. The population of Brookfield is aging. It would be nice, I mean, we depend on the state money to do most of our programming. The town, we've been getting 3,500 a year for programming. It's not enough. Not enough. Other towns seem to manage. It's a question of priorities.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, my thought is, instead of a 5-person committee, I'd like to see as many as 7 for some more diversity and getting more ideas. I just thought a project of this size, the bigger the committee, the better. Oh.
We have a hand raised online.
So I just want to make one thing. I want to make one thing clear. I don't know that Dawn or Mary Lou was on the agenda, and we did not set the time. I didn't hear it unless you did. Did you set the time?
No, Mr.
No, I
Chair,
didn't.
they were actually invited up by the board to
speak.
provide insight.
But in fairness to whoever's calling in, I want to make sure that if they need to go over 2 minutes, I don't want to hold them to 2 minutes based on Dawn and Mary Lou were not on this agenda, so I want to make sure that we're fair to everyone here tonight. But if you could try to, after this meeting now, we'll try to hit that 2 minutes.
Yeah, or
time.
after this topic.
Okay.
Because I was doing it prior, but where you had
Yeah.
called him up, I didn't
Yeah.
start the timer.
Yeah, fair enough. So
So,
is it Chris Kelleher that's on?
It is, yeah.
Chris, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I agree with Mrs. Tappan, it is absolutely true. We are one of 3 towns in Worcester County without a dedicated senior center. And we've been discussing this for years, and the progress is moving, really slow. It's not going to go away. And as Mary Lou said that our senior population is only growing. And our seniors are left behind. We can continue to rely on borrow space with limited hours and short-term fixes. I think a study group is the bare minimum first step. It really should be treated with the urgency and seriousness that it deserves. It should have a clear timeline with public accountability and meaningful community input. Not just another item which is going to get pushed aside. I mean, this committee should be to produce some real results. We really should stop debating, whether this matters and start putting something into action. That's what I would like to see. I just don't want to see this get brushed off. We got to get off that list. We don't want to be on that list of 1 or 3 in Brooklyn County. Let's get off that list as soon as we can. Thank you.
So I would entertain a motion for the size of the committee and the task of the committee.
So I'd like to make a motion, just because it's sometimes hard to fill committees. I'd like to make a motion that we charter a 5-person committee with 2 alternates for the senior study committee.
I'll second.
Any discussion on? Hearing none? All in favor?
Do you have a comment? You
No,
inhaled.
I was gonna say something, but no, no, I'll wait. I gotta think about it more.
Well, that's a motion on the size of the committee. We can vote that, and then we need to talk about the charter.
Yeah, so I guess my question is it gonna be anybody? Are we gonna make it specific people?
Composition. Composition, I think, should be, if, at the very least, there should probably be a second motion after we agree on the number, what the proper composition would be.
Yeah. So that was my only comment.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, knowing that we have a lot to get through, do you mind if we table this till next week and then we can have Ron work on how we're going to go forward with it and propose who we task to serve along with volunteers? I think there should be some members of different committees in town as well as volunteers.
I could present, I guess, a proposed or draft composition as well as probably a draft charge. And at least that way it'll hopefully streamline the discussion for next week.
Sure. Are you good with that? Lincoln Street Extension, Mr. Wilcox. So after Mr. Wilcox, then we'll make it clear 2 minutes. Is that fair? You'll run the timer?
Sure, yeah, he's on the agenda,
Yeah,
so.
I understand that, but after he speaks, then thank you.
I was here 2 weeks ago, and we were supposed to get things done over there on my street, and they hadn't been there for a while because the electricity got shut off. So May 4th, at 8 o'clock at night, they show up again, and they're making noise, and I just got done cleaning my yard and everything else, and I went in for the night on Sunday night because everybody's got to get up and go to work on Monday morning. They started at 8 o'clock banging over there. By the time I called the police at 8:30, the cops came and they said, oh, we can't do nothing. They're not doing anything wrong. And they're only going to be here for 15 minutes. Well, they were there till 9:30. They stayed till 9:30. Not another 15 minutes. I talked to the police officer at 20 past 8. They were there for another 45 minutes. I am sick of our police department not doing nothing. All right? This is getting out of hand over there. It's right across the street from my house. I'm the guy that takes the brunt of it over there. All right? My neighbors live at the other end of the street. He's in bed by 7 or 8 o'clock. He gets up at 3 in the morning and goes to work at Newton. I don't know what the lady does. She just moved in. And my other neighbor that's a little bit to my left, they've got a big hallway that runs up and down the whole length of their house, so they don't hear it. It buffers them before it gets to them. So I'm the guy that gets it all. And I'm getting tired of it. I've been living here for 15 years, and this is the worst actually, the last half of last year and the beginning of this year, this town sucks. I'm sick of it. Nobody does nothing. All I hear is this, and you don't accomplish anything. I called you last Saturday. I started giving you my name and my address. You hung up on me. I called back. I left you my name and number, and you never called me back, Beth. So I don't know what your problem is, why you didn't want to talk to me about it, but I wasn't too happy.
Not to interrupt, Jeff. Sorry, Jeff. I thought the chief was supposed to be given weekly, wasn't it weekly fines or something?
Correct. I talked to the chief, in fact, just this afternoon, and found out the chief had not provided the unregistered vehicle citations. His concern was that each citation has a 30-day appeal period. I told him that that's understood, but each citation is kind of standalone, for lack of a better term.
A new event.
Exactly. Very, very good way to say it. So each is a new event, and I assured him that, yes, he shall be putting weekly, which the board had agreed to, citations for the unregistered vehicles. So that is going to be starting, I would assume, as soon as tomorrow. And then on a weekly basis.
So why is it taking 10 months to get to here? That's what I want to know. Why is it taking 10 months for the chief to start finding them every week when I've been bitching at him for 10 months? That's what I want to know. And I also want to know is there's a Massachusetts bylaw, or whatever you want to call it, that there is a disturbing the peace law in this state. Regardless of whether Brookfield has one or not, the state has one. And they won't follow nothing. They won't follow the state one. They won't follow nothing. So they came in on Sunday, which was May 4th. They stayed till 9:30. They were banging out there, so I had my windows open because it was nice. So I had to shut my windows to try to muffle the noise from them idiots across the street. Then Wednesday comes, or Thursday, or whatever day it was. I got 3 more idiots rolling an unregistered vehicle into the road. The chief actually showed up. There was another cruiser, and the East Brookfield cruiser showed up. Chief told me he was going to start fining them if he caught them with unregistered vehicles on the road. Well, by the time the chief got there, it was sitting on the sidewalks. It's still town land. It has nothing to do with that property over there, and he didn't fine them. Then Saturday rolls around, and a whole bunch of them backed out the car down the street, pushed it up the driveway, then they had to ram it with a truck to get it in the garage. They're trying to hide them in the garage instead of getting rid of them, because they can't get rid of them. They got no titles for them. So then they backed the truck across the street with a trailer on it because they're too cheap to get a regular tow truck. They blocked the whole road off for over an hour. People coming down the road had to drive into my driveway to get around these idiots. The police department, I called them again. They come, they don't do nothing. They're blocking off the sidewalk, they're blocking off the road, and they don't do nothing. Not one iota. I'm telling you, this police department is lazy. The management is ridiculous. The chief needs to go, I'm telling you. This is bullshit.
When you met with the chief, did he have anything to say about Lincoln Street Extension today, other than citations? Did he talk about any activities, vehicles on sidewalks?
Yeah, he did indicate that there was one. He said it was partially on the sidewalk. He asked them to move it, and evidently they did move it off of whatever part was touching the sidewalk. But other than that, no.
So he's wrote a response. A couple weeks ago when Jeff was in, Beth, you talked about asking Mike to come in. Do you want to let Ron handle this again and ask that it gets done, or do you want to bring the chief in? What's the board's pleasure?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know why you're addressing it to me. The stairs here as well.
No, I'm looking at you, but I asked the board's pleasure.
Something needs to be done, because this is getting sickening.
Again, the only reason I asked you is because it was your idea to bring the chief in, and Brad's not here when you said it. So I'd like to get some idea what the board would like to do. As far as I'm concerned,
I'm more concerned about the activity happening outside of the meeting than inside of the meeting. So we had originally given direction to write the citations. It sounds like that direction wasn't given, or wasn't acted on.
Wasn't acted on, correct.
Okay. Is that going to get acted on? That's based based on your last conversation, yes.
Yes, correct. In fact, the subsequent discussions were,
Yeah.
he thought that since it was a 30-day appeal period, he couldn't do anything for 30
Yeah,
days.
and I will publicly apologize for you. I had trouble even reaching my own mother Saturday and Sunday because T-Mobile's access in this area has
Well,
started
I
to
called
crack.
you, you picked up, you said hello, and I told you my name and my address, and as soon as that happened, you hung up on me.
No, I didn't hang up on you. I couldn't actually hear at my end, so I apologize. I had multiple issues with my phone.
Well, I'm getting really sick of this town because nobody does a goddamn thing.
Well, that's,
And they lie, they don't do shit, they don't do their job. This is getting sickening, very sickening. If I worked like they did, I'd be fired. If somebody told me to do my job, like you told him to find him every week, and I didn't do it, I'd be down the road. Just because he's the chief, he can't get away with anything. This is bullshit.
So we're trying to do a corrective action. Give me a minute. Let's hash it out. You're welcome to listen to it.
All right.
so,
I'm
Get your
just,
point. We're gonna step it up.
so there was three aspects of what we were planning on doing, correct? So the first one was the chief and getting some tickets written down there.
Correct.
Didn't happen. Sounds like it's going to happen.
Correct.
Okay, so in my opinion, one of the things we need is objective evidence that it has happened, sent over to you, distributed to the board.
I asked for a copy of the citation.
Okay, great. That would be step one. I know the Board of Health was supposed to have the health agent take a look at the property. Has that occurred yet?
Yes, back on the 8th of May, the health agent from Leicester did a follow-up visit and confirmed that the tire issue that the owner was cited for is still there, and actually sent a picture as evidence that it was still there. When I asked what the next steps were, she had indicated that she is bringing that to the Board of Health's attention, and the Board of Health will then decide what the next steps are with regards to that particular violation.
Okay, and was there an aspect of this that falls under the ZEO?
Yes, Nick.
Yes,
I
the
spoke with-
CEO, yeah, he has also issued a citation for debris or trash, and that is got a few more days left in the 30-day appeal period. At which point, after the 30-day appeal period, he will check to see if the citation has been addressed, or I guess he did do a drive-by, at least preliminary, and indicated that it did not appear to have been addressed, at least not satisfactorily.
Okay. And his next step after that would be what, filing with Worcester County Court?
Correct.
Okay.
So in speaking with Nick today, he thought the appeals period was over, the 30-day was ended, and he thought that we
okay.
could move forward. So I did follow up with Nick today.
Okay.
So
So, and I know that Ron had expressed a concern over the fact that we're already over on our legal budget, but those filings are pretty much boilerplate. We have enough examples of them in the past that I think we could probably file without necessarily needing to run it through KP. Because there's nothing that stops us from doing our own filing.
okay.
And it really is boilerplate. I think we probably have a copy of every motion they've ever filed relative to trash on property.
Okay.
So I'll accept the motion for asking Nick to get a hold of KP and move forward with the court proceeding so that we can step this thing up.
Do we need to
Well,
reach
I
out to
just thought,
KP?
you know, there may be times that we don't need a motion, but often we
No,
take it,
I'm not
so-
talking about the motion, I'm talking about,
KP.
what I had stated was that given our posture against our current legal budget, and given the fact that I think we filed probably a dozen of these in Worcester County Court already, I'm wondering if we can't just review one of the previous filings and just have
Well, I
Nick
think
file
that's,
directly.
I think that's a fair enough question, and if Nick feels like he
he's
wants
comfortable.
Ron to go with him, I think between Ron and Nick, I think they could
Yeah,
we could get it done.
I could certainly work with the ZEO, and we can get that, as Beth had indicated. I'm sure there's many opportunities to do cut and paste. So
Yeah, because you file the paperwork, you're not going to get actually called into court for some period of time after that.
Agreed.
So, or at least draft it and only have KP review it instead of having them draft it. So,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
yeah.
So you'll work with Nick?
I will work with Nick, and we will bring it to the next step.
Is there any way that you guys can put a stipulation on that place over there? Because what they do is when they show up at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, they're saying, oh, we're trying to remove cars, which is their excuse for everything. They don't do nothing, okay? But all they do is make noise, and I hear it right through my walls. I have no insulation. My windows are open. It's nice out. You know what I'm saying? And they told the police, oh, we just got out of the hospital. That's why we're here at 8 o'clock at night. They shouldn't, if they want to clean that joint up, they should clean it up during regular hours, not 8, 9 o'clock at night. This is really...
Give us a couple weeks. We're taking action.
Yep.
We're stepping it up. So give us a couple weeks, and then you're welcome to check in with Ron. But we hear you loud and clear at this point. All right?
All right. I'm just, you know what I mean? I've been at this for 10 months, and it's getting old.
We hear you. Thank you for your patience. And
All right.
Highway Advisory Committee discussion. Oh. Go ahead. Come on up.
Dave Holcraft. Is this property commercial? Does anybody know this is commercial before we start writing citations?
It is not commercial property.
It's a village zone.
It's not. It could have been grandfathered, possibly, being the old bus
Okay.
company, but there's question whether the grandfather clause has been expired based on the inactivity there. So, but I'm not willing to take that part on right now.
And furthermore, I did confirm that with the town clerk, no business permits have been taken out for that property for several years. So if there was a grandfathering,
Okay.
it's certainly expired.
Just before we go too far down the road, if it's commercial, then they can keep the amount of cars there.
It's not commercial.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'd like to move on. Article number 4, Highway Advisory Committee discussion and setting a new charge possibly. We have had this committee in place probably 8, 9 months, and it's served its purpose really well, but I think now it's time for us to move on to a different area of the committee and a different tasks. Our highway superintendent is doing a phenomenal job. He's out there every day fixing areas of town. We've had some issues with culverts being plugged. He's worked on several in town in the last couple weeks, and the work he's done is impeccable. If you drive by Mill Street and see what he's done with the help of his employees, he's got some real solid help now, and the work he's doing is top shelf. So he specifically talked about keeping the committee in place. He's in favor of keeping it in place. He's just looking for the charge to change so that it will continue to assist them. Would you like to talk on it? Being the chair? So he's the chair of the committee, so.
And you're calling him up,
Yeah.
so.
So yes, we kind of had this discussion at our last highway committee meeting, advisory meeting, and we did discuss the longevity of the committee and possibly making some recommendations to the board for amending or modifying or slightly changing the charge that's in place. I would ask that you give the committee a chance to send something forward in that direction as a recommendation.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Yeah. I had some questions about a couple of the employees that are on the committee, but in speaking to Ron, he checked with town council, and it's not an issue, being how we're under 3,500 people in town. So we have a solid committee, and he's got a solid workforce, so I don't want to disrupt that in any way.
Mr. Chair,
So-
quick comment on that, though.
Sure.
One of the things we do want to do is designate probably,
Special municipal employee.
yes. So let's get the paperwork done so that what he just stated is a fact and not a hypothetical.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
So there's a process required by the state in order, we are okay because we're under 3,500 people, but there is a specific explicit process where the board has to designate the individual in those specific roles as a
Special
special municipal employee.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure, we've talked around it with a bunch of different people, and in some instances, we've done the paperwork, but I want to make sure that we get that done for the folks that are our
Okay.
dual hat.
Yep.
So,
And just to clarify, it would be all members of the Highway Advisory Committee
Right.
would be designated as those special municipal employees.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Number 5, end of year account management, status controls decision. Ron, I'm going to let you take the lead on that.
Yes, I believe it was at last week's department heads meeting, the town accountant had indicated that there were a handful of, I guess I'll call them low balance accounts. And the definition is that over 82% of the budget amount had already been expended. Those accounts are legal, which obviously we know about, technology, town clerk expense, police expense, highway utilities, council on aging expense, and library expense. Those are on the watch list, if you will. So I guess the question before the board is if there are any special, edicts from the board with regards to the end of year spending. It could be just for these particular accounts that are, I guess, in danger of being overdrawn, or it could be across the board.
Can you repeat those?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
It is the legal account, as we've already discussed, technology account, town clerk expense, police expense, highway utilities, council on aging expense, and library expense.
Are the responsible department heads aware of where they stand?
I believe so. I am assuming Lori is usually very good at reaching out to department heads. Have I been privy to any of those emails or discussions? No.
So I talked to Ron about it. I thought we're this close to the end of the year. I thought that if we had any expenditures over $100, that any department should run it by Ron. Not saying they can't spend it, but if they haven't used the money this close to the end of the fiscal year, I thought maybe we should have a little oversight over it. I talked to Lori about it. She said many communities that she works in does the same similar thing. Again, we're not trying to stop anything from going out, but we just want to kind of keep an eye on things a little closer at the end of the year.
Sorry, I'm looking at the ledger. Hold on.
Do you want a bigger version of it?
Yeah.
I'll hold it up. I don't mind sharing. That's why I brought it tonight, so.
Is there an? She only said 82%.
Yeah, anything above 82%, I think what she did is she just took what week we're at versus the 52 weeks, and that's where her 82%
Yeah,
comes from.
so here's the thing, and here's where I have a little bit of consternation over doing that. Historically speaking, our department heads have been highly responsible about tracking their own budgets and not going over without notification. We don't have a history of people deficit spending and then coming to us and saying, oh, oops, I overspent, I need the money now. They typically bring it to us, they know it's their responsibility, and not all spending is linear, okay? Just because the budget is set up to be, spent through the end of the fiscal year, it's typically not normal for that to be a perfect slope one direction or another. I know in the funding environments I live in, we actually have to project profiles, and sometimes it's hockey stick, and sometimes it's front loaded, and sometimes it's ramp up, level, and ramp down. I think we'd be putting a level of, I think it's appropriate to send out a message specifically to those departments saying, hey, you're really close. Make sure you do what you've done in other years and don't go over, right? And I think it's also appropriate to send out more generally just a reminder to the department heads that they are obligated to keep to their budget, and if for some reason there's an expenditure that's going to put them over, they are obligated to bring it to advisory and ourselves to request funding from the reserve fund before they make that purchase. I mean, it's that simple. I prefer to treat our department heads like adults and not necessarily have them have to go mother may I, since they don't have a history of not behaving appropriately relative to their budgets.
Sorry, hold on, Jeff. I don't think that was the intent. I think the intent was they haven't spent their budget yet. So if they're, I guess, not saying that they're going to do this, and I'm not accusing anybody of doing this, but are they spending their budget just to get by the end of the fiscal year? Are they buying stuff that is not necessary because it's the end of the fiscal year? But hold on, but sure. I guess one of my concerns is if we put the freeze, because that's what it's called, and we do $100, you're not saying that we're stopping, but there is a chance that we're going to have more free cash the following year. So I think that's something to kind of be aware of.
Right, but one of the things to consider, though, is we've had very robust free cash for the last probably 3 to 5 years. Part of that comes from the fact that we have good general behavior by our department heads that they don't do. So here's the thing: I lived in an environment when I was in the military.
Yeah, but if we have all this,
can I finish?
Yeah,
please finish.
Yep.
Okay. So understand something. I've worked in a bunch of different environments relative to these type of budgets. And I'm going to tell you right now, in the Army, you had to spend it to the last penny or you would not get it the next year. One of the good things about our budgeting process is the drive to spend to that last penny doesn't exist with our department heads, because if they turn money back and it turns into free cash, okay, one, we still use their budgeted amount as their starting baseline when we do our budgeting. We don't necessarily, we look at their expenditures from a standpoint of like, was it wildly wrong, okay? And part of that has built a culture where we don't see a lot of that mad minute spending across the town, right? If we did, we wouldn't have had the free cash that we've had the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, okay? The only years we've had bad free cash is when our books were a freaking nightmare, okay? No, seriously.
I've heard the stories.
You've heard the stories, and I lived through it going forwards, okay? Not just backwards, all right? So, I don't think we have that culture. I don't want to create that culture by starting to like micromanage people towards the end of the year. But that's just my take on it. Over to all of you.
And I have to think about Jeff.
Sure, come on
A
up.
couple of short points.
Jeff, I'm going to hold you to the 2 minutes based
I'll
on,
do my best.
if you don't mind.
Jeff Clark, 101 Brunel Avenue. Just 2 points to back it off as far as from personalities or whatever, as far as what the department heads are doing. But I would be interested as chairman of the advisory committee to know for those 3 or 4 accounts, like library expense, technology and legal expenses, we sort of know there's like a one-off situation. But, you know, library expense, police wages, town clerk, whatever those 3 are, try to find out if there's something unexpected that happened, so that was the reason why it's over the budget or might be potentially over the budget. Traditionally, in the 8 or 9 years that I've been doing this, there are a couple of departments that still haven't figured out quite how to budget properly, but I don't think that's anything that's malicious. It's just a question of them doing it, you know, whatever.
These aren't the usual suspects, so.
I understand that, but I wanted to say that. And so my feeling is until if Ron or Lori could do that, if there is something that is unexpected, then I'm sort of, from an advisory committee, I'm not sure that freeze thing is necessary. If it's something where there wasn't anything unexpected, they're just not in sync, then maybe they need to have that situation so that they're more cognizant going towards the end of the year, and maybe they'll budget better next year. But I prefer to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. The 9 years that we've been looking at the department heads, I haven't found anyone that's doing things that are not really above board. If they can't budget, they can't budget. That's why we're there to try to help them. But, you know, more or less the things are sorted out over time. But I would like that information if I were a select person before, you know, issuing that whatever freeze thing, just to make sure we have all the facts. And not just saying, okay, well, you know, whatever. So, thank you.
Yeah,
I didn't handle the
2:05,
buzzer, so,
yeah.
okay. Thank you,
it
Jeff.
doesn't have a buzzer, sorry.
So,
I was just trying to
yeah,
let
I
him finish.
assumed, okay.
Because he was
So-
clearly wrapping up.
So Beth's right, we do have a robust free cash situation. But what we don't have is a debt-free situation. We're paying interest on the police station, we're paying interest on the school. We need to raise $1 million plus for the school roof. We have a lot of situations. So my thought is, if they haven't spent the money in their budget by near the end of May, and we're gonna get a new charge of monies come July 1, then they probably don't need it. Now that doesn't hold true to everyone, and it's not anything about distrust, right? Because it doesn't mean every month they spend 1/12 of their budget. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if we can add to that free cash, I would like to see us pay off our debt. Me personally, I don't carry any debt. I pay my credit card at the end of every month, and I get the 2% cash back. I don't have a mortgage on my house or any of my houses. I don't have a mortgage on any of the land I own, any of the equipment, buildings, trucks. I don't have any debt. As a result, I'm in a pretty good situation. I don't understand how we have debt at this point with the amount of money. If we take a little bit from each account at the end of the year, and I'm not accusing anyone of spending frivolously, but I do know the mentality is out there, like you just said, in the military. If I don't spend it, I don't get it back next year. And that is a strong position of people that have budgets for a municipality. And I'm not suggesting it's anyone here, because we have a good group of employees. However, if we can shave their budget off a little bit, and we say, hey, and Ron can literally say, hey, do you really need this? And we put that back to free cash, and we pay down our debt, and we help the citizens out, maybe we'd be in a better situation, and we can give our employees that 2.5% or 3% that you keep advocating for. But I don't want to run this town like I've seen it done in many other communities. Let's charge it, and we'll figure out how to pay for it later. That's not how I run my business. It's not how I run my life, and I'd like to bring that fiscal responsibility to Brookfield. So I'm not saying anyone can't spend more than 100. They just need to get it through our town administrator. We haven't had a town administrator here up until a couple of years ago, and one of the things that I heard in supporting and getting a town administrator was they were going to help get our finances in order, and we weren't going to have the problems that we've had that you've talked about, right? So why wouldn't we do this?
So I do want to address one thing, though, that you said. At least according to the Department of Revenue and Local Services, there is not a single recommendation to be 100% debt-free as a community. And there's reasons for that. And there's reasons for that relative to the perception is if you are 100% debt-free, you are not properly investing in the community and in your capital projects and in taking appropriate care of the town. We have relative to community size, relative to the rest of Massachusetts. I'm not saying that we want more debt than what we have, but what I'm saying is that there's a certain amount that is considered appropriate to carry, specifically because it shows that you're making an investment in the community.
I disagree with that 1,000%. Do you know how many people have told me through the years, oh, if you don't have interest mortgage payments, you don't have write-offs. Well, let me tell you something. I'd rather not have the write-off and have the money in my pocket. So if we had that debt, Beth, if we had the debt paid off that you're suggesting that we should keep, maybe if we had that paid off, when someone like Dawn and Mary Lou come to us and say, hey, it's time to pony up for a community center, and I'm not in favor of anything other than a community center, because yes, we owe it to the elderly, but we owe it to the youth as well, right? The elderly's had their whole life to plan and prepare. I'd rather see a youth center / elderly center, right? Like that to me is where it's at. Let's build into our youth. But I'm never gonna say that, hey, let's have some debt so well, for your example, that would be a great example.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that like, and we're at the point, and let's talk about it, right, in terms of debt cycles and planning around the finances, right, and I'm sorry I am interrupting you, but
Sorry.
it's to sort of agree with you, so.
That's it, go ahead.
Right, so right in the calendar, okay. How close are we on, I know that we just put it into a long-term note. I think one of the things, in order to have this conversation in a appropriate and reasoned manner, and I'd say, let's table it for tonight because we've got so much more on the agenda,
And
right?
I have a quick question. Isn't the DOR, what do they recommend? Isn't it like 10 to 20% of free cash?
Free cash is at least 5%.
5%.
Is it 5%? I thought it was more than
5%,
Of
minimum
operation.
5% of the operating budget.
Oh, so it's a minimum, okay.
Yeah,
So-
minimum 5%, and then, let me just finish. The building for a community / senior center, I would suspect the cost would be roughly what it cost us to put in the police station adjusted for inflation, right? Adjusted for inflation, and that was going on, what, 8 years ago now? 10 years ago?
10, probably closer to 10.
Okay. I think we financed it at a level that it should be paid in, what, 10, I believe, at the current rate.
But Beth, I think
No,
we
okay.
roughly have 29,000 in interest in fiscal '26, right? Just for the police department. So my point is, if we can shave any to go to free cash, I would like to see more go to our debt to pay that off. Get all our debt paid off, and then when we can afford it and we have some free cash, then we talk about going forward. But let's not get more in debt to say it's a good thing.
I'm okay with tabling it, but I would like some research. I want to know, I guess, who's expended 65% or more, and then I kind of want to.
You mean 82%?
No, 65% or more, because we already have the 82, so I kind of want to drop it down to at least 65.
Well, I would think that would be across the
Everybody.
board.
That'd be
right?
everybody.
I would think, but I don't know for sure.
And I want to know who has spent less than 5.
Less than 5%?
Yeah,
So more than 65, less than 5.
yeah. And I know 65% is low, but you can change it to 75, I guess.
Can do.
So we've had a lot of discussion. I don't think we have a motion either way.
No, we do not. Or
So-
do we want to postpone until I can come back with Sarah's figures? Or listing, I should say.
I don't see what the harm is voting tonight and then revisiting it next
I'll
week.
make a
but
motion that we do it at $500.
I'm not going to second that.
I'll second.
All in favor, or any discussion?
I want to make the motion state that it is going to Ron for a sign off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at 500,
At 500.
it has to have my signature. Got it.
Yes. And I would like it on the next agenda too.
To revisit if we need to go tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No. Number 7, vote on recommendations for our annual town meeting articles.
So I want, before we go into the town meeting articles, I did want to, I reviewed it this afternoon. I did want to put something out there, a concern, okay? Is sequencing
Very good, I
and
agree.
structure, okay? Because as well as I had to ask out to Mike and he gave me what I asked for, but then I realized I didn't ask for enough or I didn't ask for it explicitly enough, okay? Is that, and this is about the ambulance thing, okay? I don't know what's the driving force there because I believe that originally the construct that we have was set up to ensure that, you know, our ambulance service wasn't potentially stymied by politics or the winds of change, right? So it was set up as an independent fund. My understanding is, I think it was the 1999 vote, that the Mass General Law cited in the warrant article is not the one that was voted on the floor. And we need to make certain that if we are going to try to go ahead and rescind the vote, that we're actually calling out the appropriate law section of Mass General Law that was actually in the motion. Okay?
That's already been clarified
Has it? Okay.
with the accountant who's already spoken with the DOR about
Okay.
it, because she requested this.
Okay. I would like at a follow-on meeting at some point, have the conversation with the accountant, because I'd really like to understand, like, the driving factors behind it. And the other thing is that if you notice, the way it's currently in the warrant, Article 2 is where we vote our budget. Yet the decision about whether or not and how we fund and the construct that we're going to use relative to the ambulance fund doesn't occur until Article 5. That is going to turn into an absolute goat rodeo.
We have to basically move Article 5 to Article 2,
So-
and move Article 2 to Article 3, and then just trickle down from there.
At a very minimum. Okay, the other thing is that the only way I personally, and I know that the vote of the board is a different thing, the only way I personally will support this is if instead of the ambulance fund moving to a general capital stabilization fund, all right, because we live in an environment where it's not even trust but verify, but it's let's not trust at all. I would want to see that as a specific
Line item.
first
type.
responder type stabilization fund explicitly for ambulance. Potentially, we can have the discussion about whether it's ambulance fire. I don't know. That's probably, I would say just pure ambulance and keep that firewall, right? But I get that Lori's trying to simplify our accounts, but that's not a good enough reason to me to take away that firewall to support the
But
capital
I think
needs
it's
of the
not only that, I
ambulance.
think it's also investing that money being in the general fund with the rest of our investments as well, so.
There's nothing
so-
that would stop us from investing it from the fund that it's in today.
Well, I just think it's a two-part thing, but I think I'm okay with the portion what you said, like the firewall, that's specific, because I don't want to see that money be taken away, and that's not the intent, and I would be on board with supporting it.
Yeah. But we definitely have to change the order. I mean, that decision has to be made first. That's going to determine how we
Yeah,
present the budget,
absolutely. Yep.
right? And then we do leave those other articles probably roughly in the position that they're in today, right? Because if the decision is made to leave the current financial construct intact, then we have all of the articles required to properly fund the ambulance for the following year.
Yep.
And we can pass them over if the vote is
Neat.
made to rescind the 99 vote.
So I only received this today, and I came in an hour early to go over them. But I did talk to Ron about a lot of the articles today, and I thought making a decision tonight is too soon. I would like to propose that we, and I know we're getting real close to the end of time for our annual town meeting, but I am available on Tuesday evening to come in and specifically talk about these articles to firm it up. I would like Ron to take a little time and go over some of the department heads regarding some of these. So I would entertain a motion that we pass over this tonight. Well, let me back up. I guess we can start going over some of it, but
Yeah.
I would be prepared to pass over any decision-making until Tuesday if the board is amenable to another meeting on Tuesday.
I think we definitely need to at least do
Yeah, we
one
can
pass
start-
through.
yeah,
Not even
and-
start, let's
Yeah.
commit to one pass through of at least
But I'm not ready to
educating
make...
ourselves on the
And I'm
articles.
good with that, but I'm not ready to make any decisions myself personally. And you guys can outvote me if you want, but I'm not ready to make any decisions.
No, it's your meeting, you don't get a vote, you don't have to entertain a vote on any of it.
Well, I told you, Beth, that's not my position, and that's not what I'm gonna do.
So. Okay, so did you want to lead the
Hold
discussion?
hold on one
was gonna say-
second, Jeff, go ahead. Do you mind coming up?
So just, I know this, I think this is on topic, but just from a logistical standpoint, we, as an advisory committee, had posted a meeting for next Tuesday. The only thing that we have not taken a formal vote on is the whole EMS, the warrant article 5, 6, whatever it is, because we were confused as far as if we did a yes on one, do we do no on the others, or just abstain and all that. But if you're not, if you haven't reached a decision as far as whether you want to even go ahead with that, including EMS in the budget, then I'm not sure if we should cancel our advisory committee meeting and just not take a vote on any of those particular warrant articles and just leave it up to you guys, or I'm not sure how to proceed.
When is your
Because
meeting? When is your meeting?
Tuesday at 7. So, I mean, if you want to do something like it earlier, I guess we still can meet after that,
I
but I'm
mean,
not sure.
certainly post a joint meeting if that helped you.
I already set a meeting for 7 PM for Tuesday, because Ron spoke to me about it today, so do you want to make it a joint meeting?
Yeah, so we still within the time frame. I guess we could do a,
Might make sense.
again, we're looking for direction, because again, we were based on what was presented to us as what was going to occur, but if you still haven't decided how you want to handle it, then, you know.
What are the logistics about asking Lori to come for just that portion to have that evening as well?
I mean, she's usually, I don't want to speak for her, but she's usually fairly flexible, and she realizes that's part of the job, especially during budget season, so I could certainly ask her.
Yeah.
I think that might be helpful for the advisory committee as well as the select board.
Yeah. My only other point is that if there is any discussion from department heads on that, then, you know, maybe we could get that out here a little bit today, or no, or maybe next Tuesday, I don't know.
Well, we have one department head here,
Yeah.
so we can get something. Thank you.
I have one question.
Jeff used all the time. Jeff
Well, no,
used
he
it.
used
No,
all of
I'm
his
kidding,
time.
I'm kidding, come
He
on.
used all of his time,
I'm
exactly
kidding.
2 minutes, actually.
No, it's
He's gonna kill me otherwise.
No, I'm not. Hey, so Ron, my confusion at our meeting the other day was that Article 5 talks about the ambulance receipts reserved account, and that's the law that was set up. But then the Article 6 through 9 talk about the ambulance receipts reserve fund. Are those sub
Yeah, what,
parts of the reserved account?
yeah, because what we're going to do is Article 5 is whether or not to bring the ambulance
Underneath
receipts under the umbrella of the town budget. If that passes, then
Okay,
what
but
we can
the
do
way
is
this is-
take
yeah,
no
but-
action on those
I think
other
he's just
four.
talking about account versus fund, so.
Yes, well, that's one question. The other problem is the language says, and further transfer the balance. So you're actually doing two things. You want to want to rescind the vote to bring it under the budget, number one. Number two, you want to transfer the balance of whatever was in there for the ambulance account to capital stabilization. So it's actually two things you're voting on in this one question.
Correct,
Yes.
and that actually,
Okay.
Beth was alluding to that she was
Okay.
uncomfortable with taking
The second part.
the second part and putting it into, I guess, a broader,
But by rights, you probably should split this into two articles. But I just want to make sure that the ambulance receiving reserve fund that 6, 7, 8, and 9 referred to is some sort of sub-account that's
Yeah.
controlled by this
I'm sorry.
reserved account.
Yeah, so I think the reason why, and Lori's not here to speak for herself, okay? but having worked with her for a number of years, the reason why that's combined into a single article is that if you sever it, it doesn't work, or it has a risk of, if for some reason half
One
of it
side
doesn't
getting screwed up.
pass,
Yep.
it'll
You
really.
can't do the other thing.
Yes.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So
Yeah,
if you,
so-
if you didn't rescind it and then you had that, you could screw the second thing up.
Yeah, you could make all kinds of
But the
mess.
base question is, the account's called a fund,
It should
exists
it's an
underneath the account, or they're all the same thing. They're two different names, that's what threw me.
Yeah,
Under 5 and
So,
6, 7, 8, 9.
and what it may be, again, you could be 100% correct that it's an error.
Well, Jeff
Or-
didn't think
or
I
it
was
could be-
yesterday.
Or it could be a language thing where we voted to set up a reserved account, but the actual account that was set up is designated, like the name of it is the ambulance receipt fund in
Reserved.
our accounting books. Does that make any sense? So.
It would
So-
make more sense to me if they're all referring to the same fund, but
Right.
I may not, I don't know exactly.
Yeah, so we
I just
need
said
to,
it.
but we need to check with Warren.
Would you please-
Nobody here actually knows, I don't think, so, but we do need to run
That's
it down.
Lori's, Lori's the one who actually provided the verbiage for it.
Right, but we need to
2
run
minutes
that
is up.
down
See.
because
Thanks, Jeff.
we've made that mistake before and it has caused all kinds of problems coming out of the town meeting.
I agree.
Yeah.
Good.
So, thank you, Tim.
Mr. Chair, if you want, I mean, I could start at Article 1. kind
Yeah,
of,
go ahead.
And just
Yeah,
kind of bring us through.
we'll go right through.
Okay, so Article 1 is just simply accepting the annual reports of the town officials. That's kind of a housekeeping issue. Article 2, as Beth has pointed out, is actually the budget, but what we need to do is to move that down to number 3 and move Article 5, which is the ambulance budget, move that up to 2. Because obviously how the vote is on Article 2 with the ambulance is going to have an effect further down the line. So just moving along, then Article 3, once again, as are listed here on our paper, that's just previous year balances that need to be addressed. And with Article 4, that is, I guess, another kind of housekeeping where the water department takes their quote-unquote surplus and they then transfer it to the capital expense so that they have a capital expense fund for equipment and so on and so forth. And that appears to occur basically every year. Article 6 is, depending on what happens with or I guess the new Article 2, we could either vote to accept it or we could take no action. Same thing for Article 7, Article 8, and Article 9. They're all dependent upon the decision on whether or not to rescind. Article 10 is to take approximately 8 or 9 what are referred to as stale accounts. And these are accounts that have had no activity over the last several years, and to, in essence, just bring them back into the general fund. And as you can see, Lori has listed the amounts for each of those funds. Article 11, this is from Chief Martell.
Can we pause for just a second on that one? So she's recommending we bring it into the general fund. I do want to just put a little earmark on there that, and I don't, we'll get through the rest of this and talk about it. If there's something that we need seed money for one of these other articles, rather than just returning it to the general fund, I'd like to see it recycled into an article account.
Okay.
Historically, that's when we've done these type of sweeps, it's been to address a current year need that is voted by the town. So usually, like
We
I
did
would.
last year, or the year before. I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what's usual and customary in this town, is to, instead of just dumping it back into the general fund, to actually reallocate it explicitly to one of the other things defined on the warrant.
Which obviously would make it available more or less immediately versus
Correct.
having it go into free cash, have that certified in the fall, and then
Yep,
cycle
and it's
back.
perfectly legal.
I would like to know what article specifically you would want to put that towards.
Well, let's
rather
get the
than-
rest of the way through.
Okay, so let's just keep that in
I
mind.
just
Okay.
wanted to put, I
Yeah,
wanted to
so
stick
it's
a,
like
just stick a
just
pin in
about
it.
21 grand, yeah.
Yeah, just
okay.
stick a pin in it, because,
20,800, yeah, just
Yeah.
under 21.
Yeah.
so,
We'll see. Okay, Article 11, this is protective fire equipment. As you can see in the write-up, the chief is looking for $35,000 from free cash to address his fiscal year 26 I guess I'll call it protective equipment gear. And as you can see, he has listed it out there. Article 12, once again.
I got some questions about that one, so put a star next to it.
Well, I was going to say, do we want to
Look at the chief.
address them as
Chief,
we go?
yeah.
I think
If he wants to
that's
come up.
Pete, you mind coming up? I want to also talk about number 11, so we'll backtrack. We'll do 12 first, and then I want to talk about number 11 briefly.
Thought 11 is what we were talking
Yeah, we're
about.
talking about
Oh,
11.
I thought you had Article 12, the 14th.
Well, I got questions about 12
Oh,
too, but
okay.
doing 11
Go
first.
ahead.
Let's go with 11 first.
Looks like you're going to earn your money tonight, Bill.
Not going for it.
Well, I guess my first question is, do we have, I talked to Parsons in Spencer, of course, and I guess my first question is do we have an inventory list
Of,
the coats and the pants? Like, do we know when, perfect, I knew you were good. And I guess my other question, I can just keep going if you want me. How many clothing, well, I guess I can look, but do you know off the top of your head how many we have of each, like all together? Like how many helmets compared to how many firefighters? So is each helmet filled by a firefighter, I guess
we
is my
have
question.
32 helmets for a staff of 30, because two
Okay.
of us have 2 sets of gear. In terms of compliant equipment, we have 30 of everything, but 2 sets for myself and the assistant chief.
Okay, and you're the only two that have the 2 sets,
Yeah,
correct?
simply because it was a logistical, with mine, there's a set in my personal vehicle and a set in the cruiser. So if something comes in, I don't need to race back to my house to get my cruiser. I can
Yeah.
operate out of my pickup truck.
Yeah. Okay, and another question is there any grant opportunities, I guess, for protective clothing?
The biggest grant opportunity for protective clothing actually came out from the state a few years ago when they started giving us 12-something a year, in our case, based on population. What they ran into was originally the grant would be released and they'd say, okay, you won. You were awarded this grant, but you can't spend it until all this paperwork's done. So as soon as all the paperwork's done, then you'll get notification you can spend it. But you've got to spend it by this date. And originally they said, okay, if you don't, we'll give you up to a 6-month extension. Well, somebody at the state level didn't like the extension part, so there are no more extensions. So then it became, okay, you can get equipment, and in this last cycle, that turned into that you had approximately 8 or so months to get stuff. We were reeling from a time where coats and pants were taking, in some cases,
Bobby
6,
said
8 months plus
Yeah,
just
Bobby
to
said
get
like
them.
around a year,
And
yeah.
they were very clear. They're like, if you order it and it doesn't come in by the deadline, we're not paying for it. So you had departments that, okay, the deadline's in a month, calling the vendor, you're gonna have it for me in 4 weeks. No, we'll have it for you in 8 weeks. Okay, cancel it. Okay, well, if we cancel, we're gonna have to charge you. So you cancel it, maybe you get charged, or maybe you can't even cancel it, but if you don't, you're responsible for the whole amount. And if you cancel it, you still need the stuff. So it became, okay, well, we can't cancel it because we need to have these people outfitted, but now we have to come up with the money. This month was even a little bit more troublesome. Somebody in the executive branch got into all this, and the whole thing was delayed by several weeks. So when they came out this time, and they also did it, they did one, and then they did a supplemental grant, which nobody's really sure why. They were a little stringent on the first one, so many of us got cut down on the first one. Then when we applied for the supplemental one with the money that was left over for those of us that didn't get the full amount the first time, like in our case, we got exactly what we asked for the first time and rejected on the second time. That's who's on first at the state budget level all day
So how
long.
much was it?
That was, in our case, 12-something, in the neighborhood of $12,000.
And when was this?
This one, the first one's already been done. The second one We just got awarded the stuff has been ordered and come in.
So that was for protective gear also?
No, that, again, because in that one, the second phase would have been, had to be spent by the end of June, in 6 weeks. With the exception, even helmets right now, I've had helmets that have been on order for 6 to 8 weeks now. But coats and pants especially, you're not getting them in that time frame.
So we couldn't take advantage of the grant because we
In the
couldn't
future,
get-
we could, but I need to hear from the vendor what their turnaround time is. For whatever reason, the last 2 years, like Chief Parrs told you, sir, we were at one point where gear was taking over a year to be produced.
Yeah.
And if the state's saying, you got to spend this money in 9 months, or you're not going to get it, then we're not ordering gear that we're going to be on the hook for if you can't.
Yeah, and sorry, hold on. And Bobby kind of mentioned something too. They have the 10-year
Everything is
thing,
capped.
so the
Yeah,
vendor's not willing to keep it on the shelf.
That's been that's part of the problem with helmets. It used to be you could order vendors, your vendor that still had a brick mortar type storefront. Oh, we got helmets in stock.
Yeah.
Right now, if my sales guys show, okay, I need 2 helmets. If they show up and the helmet he shows up with is a year old, I'm going to say I don't want it. So now we're ordering helmets. They're taking 6 to 8 weeks because they're putting in an order with the manufacturer who's building mass. It's plastic. It's molded plastic. So they're looking at their production and saying, okay, we're going to wait until it's cost effective for us to put in 10,000 pounds of black pellets to make this many black helmets because chiefs don't want them if they're more than 3-6 months old, because that's coming off the back end of it.
Yeah.
So we're getting helmets that are, in the old days, brand new, that we never used to because there was no 10-year rule on it.
So-
Once Massachusetts became, it was twofold, because about the same time that municipalities in Massachusetts fell under OSHA, NFPA was really pushing the 10-year rule on it, and that was one of the things that Mass OSHA adopted was, we're not going to reinvent the wheel on this. This is an international organization, knows what they're doing. They say 10 years, it's 10 years.
So, let me ask a real quick question. Does it make sense to budget this as if we get no grant money, apply for the grants, and then try to do our orders knowing when the next cycle of grants is coming and do our orders so that the delivery falls in the most likely window? And then if we get the grant money in and we don't spend the money that we've allocated at town meeting, that can either be, it can either go to free cash, or if it's on an article, it can just get rolled to the follow-on year, continue to cover that order so that he can, with good conscience and legally, place the purchase order because he's got funding to cover it.
The
But
only
then-
downside to that is if we apply for the grant specific to those items and we discover we're not going to make it, then we've lost that window for anything else. Once a grant's awarded, okay, 12 grand, I wanted 5 coats. Okay, we're not going to make it. I can't call up Mr. Moore in Stowe and say, okay, I'm not going to make it on that. Can I get this instead? No. So therein lies that. So, I mean, we can, going forward, and this is a big year. If you look at the chart, which got color coded a little bit differently, and there's a couple of extra ones, this is a big year for a few things. It ebb and flows on that because obviously, and the list is in here somewhere of what this is going to go towards this year, but at the same time, this year is going towards 6 coats, 5 pants, 4 helmet. 7 pants, 6 boots, 8 coats, and 4 helmets. Okay, when you look, and that's running on a timeline from 7/1 of 25 to 7/1 of 26, based on 10 years. The dates you're looking at there is the born-on dating for what's there.
What's there.
So if you look, anything now beyond like 2028 or 2018, we're good for a little while.
Yeah.
We just had a lot of stuff. You're going to see a lot of. We're addressing it right now. You're seeing a lot of 2015s, a lot of 2016s, fewer 2017s, fewer 2018s. So this, unfortunately, is a big year. But, you know, after that, you look at the numbers, I don't know who has it now, oh, it's just, you know, you look down the road. If you want to look at it and just see how many, you know, dates, oops, right side up would be good. Yeah, looking at codes, let's look at the big item. You know, I've got it, after a bunch of 16s, there's a 24, a 19, a 24. We're not seeing those for years, but it's just, this was the year of a lot of 16, a lot of, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 2016s.
Yeah.
So, but then after that, the next one is a 2018.
Okay.
4 2018s, 5 2018s. That's February, so we'll see that next year.
Next year.
But that's only 4 as opposed to, what did I just say?
7 or 8.
For pants, 7.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So it's, and the reason for the article rather than a budget was just, it was always safe.
Yeah, that was my question. So I guess
If we do it in an
Bobby
article.
kind of mentioned something, he builds it, some of it into his budget, and then...
The reason for it being an article over the years was that it allowed it to carry over depending on manufacturing. If I ordered it on such date, there was no issue with the accounting department saying, it's not in yet, and I don't have a firm delivery date, but I ordered it. All right, it's a lot harder to hold on to article money without hoops, correct me if I'm wrong. Rather than an article, it's just carry it over. There's a different word, isn't there? But yeah.
Yeah, the article money is allocated
The
until
article
either
money
spent or
is there
voted back.
until
Okay.
it isn't. Just to be safe, I always put the paperwork in, whether she wants it or not, just so I've got it there.
Same
saying,
reason we put
I'm
line
not
paint
done
in there.
yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas if you
So-
do it as part of the budget, it would be a separate item
Separate
on the
item,
budget.
yeah.
But at the same time, you've got to have firm commitment and numbers by,
By June 30th.
June 30 or-
it goes to
yeah.
eventually for cash. All right.
So that was going to be my specific question, why we didn't budget those annually a certain percent.
it's, I
but,
can't remember how many
Okay.
years we've been,
All right.
it's.
And then my second question was Article 12.
Yeah, why we have you up here, yeah. I
For
get,
the 14,000, what are you going to do with that?
That was,
yeah, my question was what vehicle?
okay. Let me see if I can find that one. Yeah, that could let's see where we are. So the squad was having an issue and.
Yeah, he's answering.
Yep. So the squad, the big issue we had, we actually put it in front of the right mechanic, and that got taken care of. But that vehicle does need springs. We're looking 3,000 to 4,000 on that, and some tires. So I'm not a tire guy, but on that vehicle, probably about, that's a GMC 4500, so
300 bucks a piece.
Yeah. So doing it separately as an article rather than putting it in the budget so there's more transparency to it. If I put that in asset repair and replacement, that would escalate that much higher. I don't want to say it would make it a bigger target, but there wouldn't be the transparency behind it. Here, people can ask this very question, like, well, what's it going towards?
So, Peter, I'm sorry, but tell me which vehicle, is this the
Squad
old
one.
ambulance?
The old ambulance, yes. No longer an ambulance, the former ambulance, yes.
And is that the one that you were going to get rid of because you have a problem?
We had a problem with it, and we put it finally in front of the right mechanic, who, as soon as the situation is described, he's like, I've seen, like a light came on. And just for reference, it's Ballard Diesel.
Oh, yeah.
Who learned his
Ballard in
trade
Auburn?
No,
Right
there's a
there, North
different Ballard.
Brookfield.
It's a
This
different
is
Ballard.
Ballard out of North Brookfield, who was
Ballard.
running out of
Okay.
Tassie's
running
before it was
Tassie's.
Tassie. Now he's up in North Brookfield.
Okay.
But he learned his trade from Huck's Diesel. So he's real, as soon as we described the symptoms to him, he's like, wait a minute, I've seen this before.
So the only
Came down
question
to a
is,
sensor.
you said 3,000 or 4,000 for
I can-
springs, and then
Can you just read me what the,
it's
was there an
14,
explanation
it's
of what the-
14,000.
Yeah. I could probably refine that down if you give me some time on, just to crunch again. Vehicles 14, yeah.
Because even at 400 bucks a tire, and I don't
For-
think it'd be that much.
Yeah,
but it's 2,400
them six,
bucks,
there's
it's six of
16.
them.
Yeah, so this, 16, if we can go high,
Probably
not
go
know
about
what the
7 or
market
8.
is, 2, and then 3 to 4 for springs. There was a third thing, but, and just making sure the tanker upgrade project was there. So, where were we?
Tanker upgrade?
4, 2, 6 we could probably drop that down to 10 without any problem. Because the squad was it came down to being, I know two of you for a fact can back me up on this, it came down to a sensor. This wasn't an issue 20 years ago. Now all of a sudden the sensor goes and you can't run the truck at all. And this is a pre-def truck, so that's not the issue.
So it's kind of ironic, you thought it was every time you took a left-hand turn.
We thought it was
something in
electrical.
the wire.
No, it was something within.
But when a sensor goes in one of those trucks, that's it. It's
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can turn the wipers on, the wrong sensor and it'll stall. So
okay.
maybe
So we're
that's,
going to shave 4,000 there roughly?
I think that's, yeah.
Okay. All right, Article 13.
That's still me?
Yeah, the imaging.
The thermal imaging, now that was usually I'm a little bit more crafty with my articles. But we did an article last year in June to buy a thermal imaging device. Old me or more attentive me would have written thermal image devices. So we at the time thought we wanted to get more than one. At the time, I didn't think it was politically palatable to put in enough money to get more than one. Once we looked at the market, we refined what our needs were. We bought the one, used state money to get another one, but we can still get another one with what's left over from that money.
So you mean you would have 3?
This will actually be our 4th. It'll have 2 on each of the main trucks, so each potential crew taking a hose line into a building has a dedicated thermal imaging camera. And these go from, our first one we bought with federal grant money, and that was $17,000. Now they're in the neighborhood of 5.
So now, is this specifically for the when you think the fire's out, you're shooting the
No,
building?
this is, we're going in the building, we're looking for hidden fire, we're looking for victims, we're looking for hot spots on walls. They've been used extensively on searches. You go out in the woods at night, even on a night like tonight, you aim that around in the woods and you can find the kid because the kid's 98.6 is warmer than the 62 that it is right now. But the primary is we're looking for a heat signature different than the ambient air. The most
Yeah.
important one is
And he
is
doesn't
a
need
human
any
being.
more money, it's just
Yeah,
allowing
Yeah,
him to
it's just
spend it.
allotting now.
Do you
Like I said,
know if our police department has anything like this?
I don't believe so, no.
I'm just curious.
No. I know there are police aspects to it, but I don't know if the chief has one or not.
So
honestly.
these are physically mounted on the vehicle?
No, these are handheld. No, they're in a charger mounted in the vehicle to maintain battery life and condition.
But they're handheld.
But they're handheld.
So in this, if you purchased another one, it would make 4 or 5?
It would allow for 4. Of the 2 main pumpers, 2 on each. So, and of the 2 main
So you
pumpers.
currently have 3?
Yeah, the 3rd one just came in. That was the second part of the last state grant. This would be the 4th, and that would put us pretty much, and that's of the 3 potential engine companies we have, that would outfit 2 of them. The 3rd engine company, a combination of engine 3 and the squad, only really come into play if there's an issue with one of the first 2. So we'd move those around in that case. We're not going to put these same devices on 2 trucks that only go out if there's a mechanical issue with the first 2.
Okay.
But yeah, it was basically a syntax error going back to, if I said device.
All right.
I didn't learn like from years ago when we put an article on town meeting to buy a 1992 Cruiser and then come find out there were 91s left over for cheaper money, but we couldn't do it because we said 92.
All right. So Article 14, Ron?
I have one question on that.
Okay.
So this was originally part of.
Jake, do you need a mic? Does he need a mic for the public to hear? Or, sorry, Tim, but
Just say some words.
unless
Peter,
you're...
how are you this final?
Okay.
So I guess the question was, I thought this was from an article from a prior year, therefore it's just still there.
It is still there. It's the wording. And here's the thing, I really don't know who comes, whether it's the board, you or Lori, or what's the treasurer's name? Sharon. If everybody agrees, like, and even KP, if everybody agrees, you know what, the intent is there, so be it. But history has shown me that well-meaning isn't there. So the money is already there. It's just allowing it, the verbiage to go through.
And I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned because according to the document I have, it says it wants another $5,439.77 for free cash. And that's not the case.
Oh, no.
No.
Free cash.
Free cash,
That should say transfer instead
That's
of,
all I want.
yeah.
Oh, jeez.
My copy says free cash, maybe it's been updated.
I mean, it's not even really a transfer, it's really just an authorization, it's really just an
The money's there, we're
authorization.
just allowing it to,
Yeah.
for the sake of clarity.
That's right.
So, but again, I don't even know if KP or would say, all right, it's understandable, it was a reasonable, but because the original article was singular versus plural, I wasn't willing to make that decision after taking delivery of a $5,000 piece, so.
Yeah, and basically, the town accountant had some reservations about the wording because the singular, I have reached out to town council to clarify the correct process and procedure.
Yeah.
The bad news is our primary representative was teaching seminars for the last couple of days.
Oh, Michelle?
So I'll probably have an answer on Monday.
Okay. I mean, if they're like, okay, we understand it, then it's moot, you can take it off, but otherwise I'm just looking just for that clarification on that. And in the future, I just gotta put, device, parentheses, devices.
All right, we're gonna move on. We got, all right,
To clarify this $5,400 that's in the account now, Peter, you're not requesting another $5,400, right? Because
Just looking
the way we read it at the finance board, it seemed like you were requesting another $5,400.
Just looking to use what's already there.
Okay. So we're gonna have to, so it said, Tim, what's it say, free cash on there?
I mean, that's what it said, and that was my question. It sounds like it's gonna be transferred.
it's a transfer at this
Yeah,
point.
it would either be considered a transfer or an authorization, so,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, coming out of the budget. That's
yeah.
okay.
Article
No new money.
14,
No
Ron,
new
we're
money.
moving on. Article 14.
I don't have any.
Okay, Article 14 is,
$9,000.
money just for line painting, town
Highway.
roads,
I'm not making lines.
and
Thanks, Pete.
Is the board good?
Yeah, we're good.
Awesome.
Article 15.
Yep, so Article 15 is road construction, construction and reconstruction, $25,000 from free cash. Article 16 is to utilize $1,200 of free cash for safety equipment for use down at the Highway Department. Article 17 is for a keyless entry system for Town Hall and Highway Department. And I think the rationale behind that is currently, certainly in Town Hall, there are many keys that have been distributed throughout the years, and quite frankly, we don't know who has them anymore. And that is one of the concerns, is obviously there's potential safety issues and so on and so forth. Kyle down at Highway has also expressed the same concern.
I'll tell you, I think it's, frankly, I'm not good with the 10,000. I think we would get bigger bang for our buck. We updated our camera in the town hall, maybe just a motion sensor activated camera, so we don't have to watch all the footage. Is that, Jake, can you clarify what type of camera we have here?
It is motion.
It is motion, so if you do need to, something happened here last night, you could kind of, you could identify it pretty quick without watching 12 hours of it. Is that correct?
That's correct, although it gets triggered a lot.
Okay. What would trigger it? Just,
I mean, people walking in and out of the room.
okay,
or
all right,
lights
I'm just saying in
on off,
the
stuff
evening.
like that.
Again, I don't want to fix a problem that we don't have. I know there are a lot of keys, but there's really not much to be taken out of this building, and I'm good with the camera system if someone came in, and I just hate to spend the 10,000 on it. But I think we could change the keys again for a couple $100, and it probably makes sense to do that anyway, but I think it's a lot of money to fix a problem that we don't have, but it might be cheap if something did big happen. So I'm going to defer to you guys and see how you guys want to handle this. I'm tentatively a no on it, but
Well, I mean, there's two ways to do it. We can either not place it on the warrant, or we can place it but not recommend it.
so in all fairness, I think it should go. I think it should go to the town hall floor, but I'm not going to vote for it. Unless someone could convince me otherwise.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm done.
Okay. I'd like to talk to both the employees here and down at the highway before I give an opinion on it.
Fair enough, so we'll table it, unless you have something else
I
you want to.
I talked to Jacob a little bit about it, but I kind of want to get more info. We have it in Spencer for the fire station, so I kind of want to see what other towns do first.
Okay, fair
So we
enough.
can discuss on Tuesday.
Chris, you have a question? Go ahead.
No, I took money account. I'll wait till Tuesday.
I'm sorry?
I said that I took money down. I'll wait until Tuesday.
He'll wait until Tuesday.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
All set?
Yep.
Okay, Article 18, we're looking at IT equipment upgrades for fire department, library, and highway department. Currently, right now, the fire department and the library are not under the auspices of Jacob in Everett. He has expressed some concerns with regards to specifically the library and potential risk for hacking and so on.
Exposure of personal information, and
Absolutely.
I think they're running some versions of Windows that aren't even under a EULA anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Bill Gates doesn't even remember those, so.
or they're trying to forget them.
Yeah.
There's a few versions that they're trying to forget that they released, and we still have them.
So then Article 19 is the town website upgrade project, and this is just a funding mechanism to be able to provide that. It's not under the general budget, so this would pay for the actual upgrade and the rewrite and the implementation of it.
I have a question though, going forward, is there money in the IT budget, or did we increase the IT budget to pay for it?
Well, what we could do is one of two ways. One, it could be built into the regular IT operational budget, or if we want, we could actually create a separate account for website maintenance or something to that extent. So we do, it's not in the FY 26 budget that we see there, but I guess Jacob, this is a question for you, assuming that the website rewrite takes effect sometime in fiscal year 26, would there be a maintenance cost associated with the rest of fiscal year 26?
So there's a maintenance, like a hosting and updates agreement that is in place, but you would save the money that you're not paying your current provider, so it is a wash.
And that's currently in the IT budget?
Correct.
Okay, so in essence would be a wash. What we've been paying Civic Plus would now be paid to Everett.
Okay.
And this is really the startup fee, which is a one-time deal,
Yeah,
which is
one-time,
why
yeah. Civic Plus
it's
is
appropriate for being an
absolutely
article.
crazy. Yeah.
Exactly, certainly a one-time.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, honestly, I don't believe we need any longer. Myself, Jacob, and Lori sat down yesterday, had a very long, detailed discussion on how to address the funding of IT support from March through the end of the year. We've come up with, Lori has expressed a fairly high degree of confidence that she's going to be able to handle the expenses incurred during that 4-month period with end-of-year transfers. And Jacob has more or less agreed to how that was going to all take place. So, as I said, I think at this point we could probably take that off of the warrant, or if we leave it on there, then I would strongly recommend we take no action.
Okay.
I mean, if we have a solution, I'd just take it out.
Yeah.
I agree. It's cleaner because it's only going to introduce confusion on town floor.
Yeah.
21.
Yeah, so 21, these are new computers for the police department. There's 8 computers that would be from the station and 3 laptops, which are actually in the cruisers. The reason that they're needed is the upgrade to their police software requires Windows 11. Unfortunately, none of the computers at the police station or in the cruisers can accommodate Windows 11.
So the only question I had is why do we need 8 for the building? So if you would have an opportunity to talk to the police chief and just, we could kind of figure out exactly what's going on with that for our Tuesday meeting.
Yeah, I can absolutely ask him to identify the 8.
That's my question. You guys have any, or?
No, I talked to Jacob.
Okay.
I questioned the amount a little bit, but that's all right.
Okay, all set. Article 22, this is to fund dehumidifiers and mold remediation in the basement of Town Hall. The impetus behind this was the 2 public health air assessments or air quality assessments that occurred in Town Hall. We failed both of them. They had identified the source, or the primary source of the mold and mildew coming from the basement, basically leaching up through the floor. The carpeting that was in here was also deemed to be a contributing factor. Obviously, that's been replaced. There was other factors involved. There were some access points, holes, if you will, in the flooring here at Town Hall, and the Town Hall Improvement Committee has plugged those. So really the final step for the recommended approaches and solutions would be to dehumidify the basement of Town Hall.
Okay, number 23.
23, this is really one part of a 5-year plan that the library is contemplating, a capital plan, if you will. They had indicated that they didn't want to go after the full, 200,000 or so, that they wanted to take it up in smaller chunks. I personally have not seen the capital plan and how it's laid out, but this is kind of, think of it as the first step in them implementing that plan. Now, just for transparency, one of the priorities for the grant writer is to look specifically for library grants to be able to address these so that we don't have to utilize free cash.
So I was at the advisory board meeting when she spoke, and I think she's doing a great job there, but I question the amount of money going towards that. So if you could bring us up to speed again on that, if you could get that information for Tuesday so that...
Yeah, I'll specifically ask her for the 5-year plan.
Yeah, okay, that would be helpful.
If you think about it, if you agree to this $40,000, you're almost signing on
for 200,000. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and I guess my question was, I kind of obviously I wasn't there. I didn't meet with Brenda, but obviously it's a capital plan. So do we have a capital committee still? Is there?
Yes and no.
So we have a couple of people. We haven't held a meeting. One of the things that really needs to happen is, one of the things that I had asked for in order to start the capital planning that still haven't received is 5-year revenue projections, because it doesn't make any sense to put a capital plan together necessarily unless we have the revenue projections for the town. And I think I've asked once a month for the last 4 months, and I've yet to receive anything. So before we start deciding how much we're going to spend and on what, I think it's really incumbent that we be able to do that revenue planning relative to the capital planning. We can put the needs on paper, right? I've got fire. I've talked to highway about getting their capital information, because I've lived through the whole capital planning process once before. And one thing that I wanted to encourage the town to do was to collect the needs and get it on paper before we have the first committee meeting, because it's better to have a framework and all of the information laid out before you put it
Put
in
it up
front.
front, yeah.
Because otherwise it turns in, you get on one particular topic and you can spend 6 weeks talking one particular
yeah.
item.
Yeah.
So, so like I said, I've talked to fire, I've talked to highway. Highway was still in a little bit of churn because Kyle is new. Lindsay has provided me some of their information. I know they're working on doing an inventory. And I'm scheduled to talk to Chief Blanchard about what their needs are. I didn't have the annex on my radar. Do you want to get it, or do you want me to get it?
The capital plan?
Yeah.
I would say, why don't we both ask Brenda and...
I don't want a double hitter, so do you want me to ask her, or do you want to ask her?
Sure, if you
Okay.
want.
Yeah, I can ask her. I'll try to get that, because I think that would be the last big piece
Yeah.
that we would need in order to put that together. So
Okay,
I've got a
alright.
framework, and I've got a sketch out. I didn't bring it tonight, based on the stuff that Fire has, mostly based off of his vehicles, though I think there's probably a need, especially where he's got the inventory for doing the equipment as part of that
Equipment, yeah,
plan.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it's just a case of taking it out of the pencil and putting it into the broader plan.
Yeah, and Spencer even has like a scorecard too, and they rate it. So like once we get it, like so they get all of, so every committee member like rates each need, and they put it into a scorecard. So then when it goes to town meeting, they vote like
Based
whether
on the
to fund.
priorities.
Yeah, based on the priorities.
Yeah.
And it's based on the score that they are giving. So it kind of just lays it out like what the committee needs.
The thing that I've been trying to lay out as I talk to folks about their different capital needs is at least earmarking potential sources of the funding. You know, kind of like
Yeah.
the questions that went around the table today. Hey,
Yeah.
is there grant money available? Yes, no, right?
Yes, yeah.
That
Have
sort
you
of thing.
applied for the grant? Yeah.
Yeah, or, you know, what's the cycle for it? You
Yeah.
know, what month do we need to look for it, that sort of thing. So, so let me just add Brenda to the office
list.
crawl that I've been doing relative to
So
this.
you'll have that before Tuesday, do you think? Because
I should have Brenda's information before Tuesday, because they're in through Saturday, right? And they're off Sunday, Monday. So long as I catch her, I'll have to catch her probably tomorrow or Saturday.
Okay, good, thank you.
So.
24?
All set. Number 24, this one is tied to the switch from Maya Health Insurance to the Hampshire County Group Trust, or Group Insurance Trust. There is I refer to it as buy-in, but basically we have to set up a reserve as we make that transfer, and that reserve is made up of 3 months' worth of premium. My estimates, and granted they're not exact because I think we're still in the enrollment period, is $250,000 would comprise that 3 months premium, that buy-in, if you will. That can be paid over a 2-year period. And as a result, since we are, in fact, we were blessed with a fairly large free cash amount, what I'm suggesting is we take $175,000 this year out of free cash, set it aside for that buy-in. And then that way, if we do experience a tougher financial outlook next year, we're only on the hook for $75,000 to complete our buy-in. So that would be my recommendation, is to do the majority of it this year because of a financial situation that we're in, and it takes some of the burden off of next year. Now, one of the things I am trying to clarify is, can we take that $175,000, set it aside in some type of a reserve fund so that we can gain the interest on it? So if we can do that, needless to say, I'd prefer to do that and then make one big lump sum payment to the group insurance trust at the very end of that 2-year period.
So based on taking that and then the 200,000 in the next article, what will that leave our free cash at?
My ballpark is right.
It's got to be more than that. No?
I did a ballpark. Now, mind you, with the 175,000 plus the 200,000 for under Article 25 set as a set aside for the BES school roof project, that would bring this total to $565,000 out of a balance of $634,000, giving us an additional $68,000. And so I guess we have a little bit of latitude how we want to utilize that rest of that money. And granted, these numbers haven't been updated with what we talked about tonight, so we'll probably end up saving, we'll have even a little bit more money available to us. But obviously, we can choose to increase that. We can put it into our general stabilization. There's OPEB.
So one of the, there's a couple of different things that I'd like us to consider to do with that. One of them would be OPEB, or some amount of it going into OPEB. The other one that I had wanted to bring up in the context of looking at the warrant is that there are a number of times when grant opportunities come up that may or may not have been on the radar that require matching funds. And I'd like to find out if the town would consider doing something similar to what we've done with the fleet repair replacement account, which is not some huge amount of money, but even if it was something like $20,000-$25,000 that we would have available to us with a majority vote of the board to apply as matching funds if we have a grant opportunity come up that requires those type of matching funds without having to call a special town meeting.
Now, people are going to accuse Beth and I of having set this up, but completely unrehearsed. Recently, and literally like within the last week or so, there's been a grant opportunity for Lewisfield driveway paving.
That's one of the reasons why it came up, because I had the conversation with Lindsay independently. So I don't know if she talked to you about it yet or not.
Yes,
but
Lindsay and I had discussed it. Evidently, Lindsay and Kyle did take a look at the project, spoke with our vendor, determined the project would probably cost around $75,000. Lindsay has identified a grant that would certainly be available for us and we'd be eligible for. It's a 70-30, 30% match by the town. So using the $75,000 figure that Kyle's comfortable with, that would put the town on the hook for $22,500. Needless to say, there's nothing in FY26 budget for that. So free cash would really, truly be the only avenue in which to pay for
in
that.
the appropriate place, quite frankly. I mean, typically on something like grant match funding, it would always be a warrant article.
One time.
Right, it's a one-time expense. And in this instance, like this year, like my thought would be, it's 22.5 for that one grant, funded at like 25. If the quotes come in less than that 75, right, or a little bit over, you have, we can very clearly enunciate on the town hall floor, look, right now we're targeting this grant, it's due in July, right? So fortunately, it's due a couple of weeks after town meeting, so we actually have the time to do this, right? If there's $4,000 left over, like, if we got the grant, if the quote comes in, then later it comes in at like 85, which we have enough to cover the 30%. If it comes in lower, which I sat in on the state, or one of the vendors who does the bids on the state contract, I sat in on a good chunk of that meeting on Wednesday. And right now asphalt's cheaper than it has been for a bit. Or some of those products are cheaper than they have been for a bit. If we came in under that 75 that Kyle was talking about, and say there's a grant for setting up a wood bank for residents, okay, and it's a $15,000 project, and we need to match it with $3,000, we can recycle that money into other grant applications. So long as it's servicing one of the town departments appropriately, without, again, having to go back to town meeting. So I'm not talking about a huge amount of money, I'm just talking about something that is aligned on this grant, maybe with a couple of $1,000s leeway in case the quotes come in either direction, right? And it gives us some flexibility in the go forward.
So I have mixed feelings about that, right? 70% for someone, for us to get that grant, it sounds like a great deal, and it is a good deal for Brookfield. But why do we really need Lewisfield driveway paved? Mike Lawrence put a nice little letter together highlighting some of the issues with it. Talked about it's easy to plow with snow and ice. We're not using it for snow and ice. I've never seen a vehicle down there when we had snow and ice. It would make it better for handicap accessible, so that's a great point. It's going to make it hot as a son of a gun to have that area paved. It doesn't have any shade to speak of at all. But more importantly, a lot of that area doesn't have the proper drainage for pavement yet. A couple of years ago, I volunteered and I did a bunch of trenching down there. Those trenches never got brought to daylight, so the trenches are in the middle of the parking lot somewhere. A couple of the members of the rec committee did some work after I was done, but all the project didn't get done. And then it also talked about it's better for runoff. It's not, because we have a big permeable area down there right now, and once we pave it, we're going to have a lot of sheet flow of water that's going to go off and erode that bank into the wetland down below. So I just think, yeah, it sounds like a good deal initially to get 70% of Lewis Field paved, or the driveway and parking area, but really it doesn't really offer a lot to Brookfield. The biggest thing I think it offers is wheelchair accessibility and mobility around the area. But other than that, I don't think it does anything else for us. And if our cut's 22.5, that's almost the interest on the police department for this year. So, is it going to make the kids play ball any better? Absolutely not. Is it going to be accessible more? Probably not. Is it?
Well, you just said it would be. You just said it would be more accessible.
For wheelchair accessible, but not...
And other mobility limited people. You don't have to be in a wheelchair.
There are some, but the pros and cons, and does it make it more sense to put that towards our debt and not have a paved area, right, for a driveway? So I'm only one vote, and I haven't totally made my decision, and I'll make a decision by Tuesday if we meet again regarding this, but I think there's some things that we need to weigh, right? Fiscal responsibility versus the wants of the rec committee, right? When you're talking about 22,000, I had talked to someone about the possibility of putting a small splash pad down at Lewis Field, which I think would be great for the kids in the community. I'd rather see the 22 grand go to a splash pad versus a paved area. It's going to make it extremely hot in the summer. We're going to have a problem with the wetland down below with all the sheet flow of water that it's going to collect, and it's going to be a lot. So I don't know, I have mixed feelings on it, and I just wanted to throw another angle at you guys to consider. But everything that Mike Lawrence did, he put a lot of thought into it, and a lot of it sounds good, but some of it's not exactly accurate. I did talk to our highway superintendent about it. He did talk about the permeability of that gravel area now versus when it's paved. It's going to change it dramatically. So just another thought.
I have a question. Did anybody, like the citizens of Brookfield, reach out to like the rec committee? Has there been like
a bunch of
a census
about the condition of that road.
of the condition? Is there?
I guess I'd have to touch base with Mike Lawrence to see how much complaining, if you will, that there's been for that.
Complaints over the years. I've been getting complaints for the last 6 years about the condition of that road, and times when I've attended events over there, I get probably about 15% of the people attending whatever's going on over there complaining about the condition of that road. So even if we're not going to pave it, we definitely need to do something about it.
I don't know if I agree with that, Beth. My son hasn't played baseball for a few years, but I consistently go down there. I was down there a couple weeks ago looking at the track that we spent. I can't even remember how much that, I think that was a match grant on the walking area. That walking path that was put in is totally eroded in several spots. That needs addressing, and I haven't asked Kyle to take care of it yet because he's got too many other things going. We spent a lot of money on that walking path that's going to heck real quick. And then I don't know what our match was on the soccer field, but realistically, it's no different than it was. It's a little less pitch to it, but the money we spent just because we got a match grant, we're not sending kids from here to professional soccer from leaving to, and I think we spent $100,000. The grant to fix that field was $100,000. I don't remember what our match was, but fundamentally, I don't see any difference in the field. The kids were able to play on it. My kids played on it, and so I hate to keep beating the drum, but I would rather see the money go to our debt rather than a ball field that had a little too much pitch, or a soccer field that had probably 3 feet of pitch in 100 yards versus 2.5 or 3 feet. 1.5 or 2 feet. It didn't really change the topography that much, but we sure spent a lot of money there. So.
Another question, the rec committee said it would, I think in the letter it said additional parking spaces. Do we know how many? Can you just get a little bit
Virtually, you cannot
a little
create,
bit more info?
You can't create more parking area out of the same square footage that we have. So that is another fallacy in that, in Mike and I.
Well, that was gonna be my question. Are we gonna asphalt more than gravel that we have right now? Like, is that the intent to add to pave more? You get what I'm trying to say?
For that
That
cost,
was
you
not
could.
what I understood.
Yeah.
What I understood was what is currently gravel would become asphalt.
And at the end of the gravel area, it drops almost to a 1-to-1 slope, which is a 45-degree angle, and right into the wetland.
And that was
So-
another question about the wetland. I kind of brought that up. There's a wetland over there. The soccer field had to go through at least an RDA. So is that something that's going to be budgeted? I mean, that's not part of the quote.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's grant eligible, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so would that be added on to the 25 or the 22 grand?
I would think so, yeah.
All right.
I would think any type of environmental would be part of whatever the contractor quoted, because they're the ones responsible for going and getting the RDA.
But the quote was specific to pulverizing what's there, which was asphalt grindings, pulverize that and repave. So there was no drainage, and again, I want to bring you back to the drainage.
Could you put
that's
it in the grant for expenses too? Yeah.
The
Yeah.
drainage is basically in the middle of the parking lot and did not continue to daylight, which would not be a good thing paving over. So. I think we're on Article 26, right?
Yep, on to 26 is really kind of another housekeeping, purely administrative. This is for the Board of Library Trustees, who currently, I guess in their charter right now, do not have control over the annex in the museum portion of the property. This is just to include that, to in essence reflect in their charter
How
what
it's been
is actually
managed.
happening. Yes. So next, Article 27. This one has to do with, well, I guess there's a long history with this one. This has to do with the cemetery road improvements, paving, and I guess there's been debate, arguing, if you will, with regards to how to improve those roads, how to pave them, who's in control of those, of how it's done, who's in control of the money that town meeting had set aside. I believe that I had forwarded the commissioner's letter to everyone yesterday or the day before, in which basically the cemetery commissioners indicated that, well, I'll read it right from
It's in your packet too.
yeah. In bolded portion of their memo. We have voted on and approved the use of chip seal as a top coat over an asphalt base. We have a good idea of the roads that are in the direst conditions and need of repair. We have agreed to a basic foundation for the roads with a base coat of asphalt. The cemetery commissioners were not in favor of the chip seal finish coat, as we don't think it's as good as the top coat of finish asphalt. However, the paving committee outvoted the commissioners, and chip seal top coat is what it will be. So at this point, it sounds as if the cemetery commissioners are in agreement, at least with the chip seal top coat, on how it's addressed. I know that Highway Superintendent Rutkowski has actually analyzed the project, has a game plan of how it can be addressed utilizing millings to, I guess, currently right now there's a large hump and there's gullies, if you will.
Yeah, they can use it to provide an appropriate base.
Exactly, a level base and a better foundation. So with that as the background, the meat and potatoes of Article 27 is to indicate that the $60,000 that's been set aside for those road improvements at the cemetery would fall under the authority of the cemetery commissioners.
So I'm going to channel my inner Rich Chafee and say, did we ever look at the grant opportunities and other funding sources besides what we voted at town meeting for this project?
I'm impressed.
They're like twins. Not that I'm aware of. I could check with Lindsay to see if that's been on her radar screen, but
because
it's never
I mean,
been
one of the things is, in particular, where, although it sounds like albeit grudgingly, there's alignment that the appropriate thing, given the like 600-page historical preservation plan associated with the cemetery, and all of the grant funding and other preservation efforts that have gone into that particular space, right? It sounds like we do at least have alignment that the material needs to be consistent with that preservation approach, which was the primary concern that was expressed to me from some of the members of the paving committee, that they didn't feel that there was clarity that the cemetery commissioners were going to adhere to that statement. Okay? If we have in writing from the cemetery committee
and a vote.
And a vote that, albeit somewhat reluctantly, they're supporting the chip seal approach, then I think we're in a relatively decent position. But, you know, there are other funding sources that could have been used before we voted this, including the perpetual care, including the improvement funds that were solicited from the townspeople as donations back a significant period of time ago, and none of that was looked at in terms of supporting this project. So, I mean, we voted the money already. Functionally, what we're saying is it's okay to go forward with the project. I would want it enunciated, because here, it just says moving forward with asphalt. It says nothing about chip seal in the communication on this. If we're gonna vote it at town meeting, it needs to enunciate exactly what's in that letter so that people are clear what they're voting on and that it's consistent. And I'd like to get a statement from the Historical Commission in here as well, stating that the planned material is consistent with the Brookfield Cemetery Preservation Plan. Either that or they need to have another meeting of the paving committee, because they have representation from the historical committee on that committee, and get them to draft what their recommendation is to get added to this article. But this is one of those situations where we have the 60K allocated, but if we don't spend it all because we determine that it's more appropriate to fund it from some other sources, then next year we can look at reallocating that money out of this fund to meet some other need in the town.
Yeah,
So,
I'll be perfectly honest, Beth. I've never been in favor of this. I didn't vote in favor of this initially. I thought that 60,000 could have done another half, 3/4 of a mile of public way for the couple hundred people that might be at the cemetery that use that. I thought it money better spent on a public way, but I understand the cemetery does need something. And back when Alan Martell was here, I remember him putting down asphalt grindings with Ralph Mundell with a paving box, right? And it was all done in-house. And I realized that those are the old days, and we're not going to come back to that, but 60,000 to pave a few roads down there seems like an awful lot of money. But to keep it in keeping with the historical committee, to do the chip seal, I can see why it's going to cost that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and I agree, something needs to be done, but boy, it's a lot of money for a couple hundred people a year to drive on.
So, but it's not just for how they're driving on it, it also impacts potentially some of that road edge and.
I get it.
A lot of reasons to do it, not just for the potholes, so.
Okay, all set with 27?
Yep.
All right, number 28. This is to take money from the cable PEG account put it into the PEG cable access operating. So basically, we have a very large reserve fund balance under PEG, and what Jacob is recommending here is that we take some of that balance that's sitting there, put it into the operational as a buffer, for lack of a better term, and as we've seen, the PEG operations, certainly over the last several months, the costs have increased quite a bit due to, as we'll see, with remote participation and the technology that's needed to make that happen. And as that technology and the request for that expands, it's just going to cost that much more to have people operate it and monitor it. So this is Jacob's, once again, there's no new funds involved. This is just a transfer.
It's a transfer from the existing.
Yep. Exactly. Then the next one, Article 29, it's a little complex, but basically this is a Mass General law that's already been accepted, at the state level, and this is just the town accepting it. The town treasurer is fully supportive of this. It will help with the diversification of investments, thus it'll give her a little bit more latitude in how she invests funds. Obviously, there's still a very high level of prudence that she has to utilize to stay within the state guidelines, but this will just allow her a little bit more elbow room. And before we hit Article 30, I think we need to vote to go over the 2-hour limit, since we're well past it.
We got a new board. I don't know if that 2-hour rule is, I'm good with losing it.
It's technically on the books. I'm just looking at the rest of what we have. Do we want to save it for Tuesday and do our homework, is I guess what my question is.
I think it's worth going over it, and we'll get Ron to go a little quicker.
Okay.
Let's get it done.
I'll move it along. Article 30, once again, housekeeping. We do this every year. These are just setting up the revolving fund limits. So there's no new money per se. This is just receipts that they receive. They can expend them up to that level. Article 31 is a veterans work-off exemption. This is to bump it up to the state accepted level of $1,500 for veterans, so they can work off their tax bills. Article 32, very similar, but this is for seniors. That limit is actually at $2,000. And
can I ask a question?
Yep.
So, Mary Lou, what was the issue, if we're voting to make the funding go up, is it just that there's like a conflict of interest or something?
Because the person is on the board.
Mary Lou, do you mind coming up? I'm sorry.
If I can move. The person involved is on the board of the Council on Aging. And according to Lori, she cannot use any of the hours that she participates in over there as tax write-off. She's in charge of the foot clinic, registering people, making sure they come.
Right, but the Council on the Aging responsibility is to show up at the Council of the Aging meetings.
That's my feeling.
The foot clinic is volunteer work. That's severable.
Right.
So can we have a conversation with Lori? Because those are two totally different things. Yep. The person running those clinics and coordinating those clinics, not necessarily the responsibility of a member of the board. It's just like we could have volunteers videotape this, right? It used to be that our cable access committee members were the people were on the committee also did the taping, right? But the taping wasn't necessarily a responsibility of the committee. The responsibility of the committee was that somebody would tape. And it could have been done by any volunteer, it could have been a high school kid if we had gotten one reliable enough, right? it sounds like we're in the same situation there. So
Right, it's
she
certainly
shouldn't
not-
get reimbursed for COA meetings, right? But work done in a volunteer role in excess of the responsibilities of the COA should be severable for the purposes of the tax
Makes sense.
break. That's why I wanted to ask the clarifying question on that. Thank
Right,
you.
and especially in relation to the fact that the amount has been upped this year, according to Brenda and Patty, they really don't have enough work in-house here for volunteers, and we're taking away one.
Right. So it seems like we just need to make that clarification of what is considered Council of the Aging Committee responsibilities versus, and could you all do that actually? Could you come back with a outline of which duties are actually
Responsibilities
the
of
committee,
your
and
committee.
which ones are considered volunteer roles in support of the senior activities?
Yep.
And let's make that a policy, let's put that on paper, and then we can bring that back to the accountant.
Okay, no problem.
That might give us a legal eagle way out
Thank
of
you.
that. Thank you. Thanks for commenting on it.
Okay, next one is Article 33, very much like the previous ones, except for this is for active duty military personnel that are serving overseas, and this is for a 100%. So this isn't necessarily a limit, a dollar limit. It can be up to 100%. So that, once again, just adopting that. The next one, Article 34, is a rewrite, if you will, of our unregistered motor vehicles. My personal feeling is this is much clearer. There is definitely some, in fact, the chief and I have arm wrestled over the interpretation of our current bylaw, and town council, when I addressed it with them, even admitted, yes, I could absolutely see how it could be debated one way or another. This new rewrite, once again, of the bylaw is very specific. Under fines, you'll see it says after a 14-day period, a fine of $50 per vehicle per day will be imposed for each unregistered vehicle exceeding the limit of one. So it's very, very specific in what the police are able to do from a fining perspective. So that's the impetus behind that. And obviously, it's part and parcel. We have to rescind or delete the existing. For Article 35, this is a noise ordinance. Couple concerns there. One is it speaks as far as hours of operation ending at 8 p.m. Needless to say, once you get into the summer months, 8 p.m. is still light out, and quote unquote excessive noise or louder noise is certainly expected, shall I say. Another concern is, as of right now, I'm not aware of any department that has decibel and noise detecting or monitoring equipment. So that would end up potentially being a new purchase or purchases.
This is going to be an extremely difficult pass on town hall floor.
I agree, yes.
Well, the other challenge is the way that it's written. What is it, FMR or CMR regulations that regulate noise? Talk about a change from the ambient noise.
Correct.
And you can't just set it at 65 decibels, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you stand by Route 9,
Yeah,
you're at 65 decibels most of the time.
correct.
Okay, so the way that the current regulation is, and I don't know if it's state or federal, I always get that confused. I think it's
state.
I think it's a state reg, and you have to be able to prove a 10 decibel difference. And actually, I think I have a meter that was bought for the town, but I don't think I ever got reimbursed. So it just need to get recalibrated. So we do have equipment.
Oh, we're a little better off already.
So, but yeah, it has to, I would, and I don't know I don't know who wrote this, so you're sponsoring, you wrote it and
This,
sponsored it?
actually, Mr. Wilcox had presented this as part and parcel to
So is
his
it
issues.
so is it a citizen petition, or are we?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Not necessarily
I guess it's
citizen.
not necessarily, we can vote on it, but, you know, to me, it's going to be extremely,
Well, it's also just the way that it's written isn't consistent with this, with the CMR. It's not consistent with any of the state law or even any of the municipal regulations. So, the other thing is it seems to be very specifically designed around repo and mechanic work, and there's all kinds of potential sources of nuisance sound, including things like the racetrack that we haven't stood at the edge of the property and checked, right? So, I mean, if we were gonna, the Board of Health left, I mean, fundamentally, I would want the Board of Health to weigh in, because typically noise ordinances come from them.
Correct. Yep.
So I'd like to refer this to the Board of Health and ask them to get back to us before the deadline for town meeting.
sure.
I'll make that as a motion to refer this to the Board of Health.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just had a question about...
Tim, do you mind coming up?
And I agree, this is written kind of clumsily, but it sounds like there is already a noise
Did you set the time?
ordinance for, in the state of Massachusetts anyway, right?
There's a CMR, and I can't remember the number, that outlines noise. Yes.
Noise. Well, obviously, my concern is the racetrack, right? It's right down the street from us. And my gut tells me if you're on the property line of the racetrack,
CMR.
they're going to exceed whatever the state levels are.
Thank you.
So this is going to open up a can of worms, right?
No, well,
Right, for all the residents down.
I'm not worried about opening up a can of worms with new language. I'm worried about taking care of the can of worms that already exist under the current state requirement for noise limits. And if there actually is something out there, then we
There
need to
is.
be able to have at least some sort of conversation about what to do about that.
So
Enforce
the
it somewhere.
challenge that we had is I think, typically the enforcement of 310 CMR 710 falls under Board of Health. And Board of Health, at the time that we asked for enforcement, was a different board. It was 3 or 4 years ago. And they were uninterested in monitoring the track. Or claimed that they were not resourced to do so. Even when we offered resources, they didn't want the resources and had no interest in monitoring.
Well, I guess I'm kind of challenged by the fact that the select board can't direct the Board of Health, but maybe I don't understand the rules.
Boards of Health in the state of Massachusetts have way more power.
Anyway.
But secondly, how long did the lawsuits go on down there that I'm sure this was brought up in many of them that
It was not.
was
We
not?
never, so the problem is we never collected the, and we're using a bunch of his time, so I'm gonna pause the timer for a
I
second.
already paused it.
Thank you. Tried to get a coalition of the willing together to get trained on using the sound meters that I purchased and had calibrated, and could not get sufficient support from either the neighbors or from, other people to go ahead and take those readings. I went out and took some myself, and the sad fact of the matter was that we were at like 9.5 decibel change in ambient noise most of the time, even in some of the areas where it was terribly annoying. So I did it from, the ones that I did personally was, I did it from my backyard, just because you can still hear it even though I'm in the center of town.
Really?
Right? Okay. It sounds like someone's running a chainsaw.
Yeah. I can hear it at my house.
Right, and I'm buffered because I have trees, because I was getting complaints from folks like George Hintle because of because of where he lived. He was against the hill, and it used to just hammer his house. You'd get it both directions coming off of that hill. I went out to Nanatampwa because they catch it right across the water.
I
And
would
the
think
water
that would be the
pick up
loudest.
sound. Yeah, and I went out 2 weekends and it was like right at like 9/8. Like I went out like 4 or 5 times during the day, and it was just under that threshold, so we couldn't bring. So that's the problem.
No, and again, no one's looking to shut down the operations of what he's doing.
But they could put fewer people on the track.
Well, no, all I'm suggesting is that we need something to negotiate, that he comes to the table,
Yep.
just like the guys and folks in Charlton did.
Yep.
And they're legit. Everyone's good with it. And we're good with the guy making a buck over there. It's what do we have to do as a town to get him to the table to have a conversation about that?
Right. And
about a
here's
schedule.
And here's the thing. He's been really smart about certain things, because one of the reasons why he doesn't have sanctioned races, and he classifies himself as a practice track, is if he actually had sanctioned races, the American Motorcycle Association would force him to do
To the sound,
tailpipe,
exactly.
to do the sound checks.
That's right.
But because he doesn't do sanctioned races, he doesn't have to do tailpipe checks.
There's a number of issues there, right? There's the issue of the ambulance not being paid appropriately when people are hurt down there, yada, 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 right? So all I'm suggesting is there's a number of different opportunities we have to get him to the table, to have a discussion, what works for him.
Yeah.
No one's
Tim,
looking,
I hate to
right?
cut you
But
off,
anyway,
I'm sure
we're done.
we're at the 2
We're done.
minutes.
Yeah.
So and it's getting late.
but
Well, you brought up the noise, so.
But sadly, the CMR, the way the CMR is written, I don't have proof that we go over 10 decibels on a regular basis, on a consistent, sustained basis.
Not even at the level.
It's like, it was 9/8. A couple
Alright.
times it went over.
I'm
Sorry, go
sorry to cut you off, but let's move on.
Yep.
I got one more.
Okay, hitting the home stretch here. Article 36 is, it is a citizen's petition, and this is to use quote-unquote time clocks for all appointed, non-salary town employees. So the way I read that is, that would probably be highway, library, town hall, probably police department, fire department. So there's no cost associated with this, but I mean, it is what it is. It's a citizen petition. We, by law, are obligated to put it as it was presented to us.
All right, 37?
37, also a citizen's petition, and this is just the folks from Countrywood Circle requesting that the town accept their existing roadway as a public way.
So, back when Herb Chafee was the highway superintendent, he felt that didn't meet the requirement for us to go down there and plow and sand and salt. So I would like Kyle to weigh in. So if you would reach out to, actually, I'll reach out to him tomorrow. I'll ask him to go up there and
I can
take a
reach out
look.
to him.
I have to meet with him anyway about a couple other things that, so, but if you get there first, you feel free to reach out to him.
I just want to know the condition of the road.
It's paved. It's just not, the diameter of the circle doesn't meet the state requirement. So Herb Chafee, when he was the highway superintendent, he did not accept the roadway. So since then, the individual that built the little subdivision, I think he's kind of moved on. There's probably 5 homes in this little circle area off of Town Farm Road, and I think they chip in to have it paid to have it plowed and sanded. So they're just looking to put it onto the town. So I want.
Well, you're the one that's always said that private folks on private
They
ways
do.
pay just as much taxes.
I did not say that I was against it. I only asked for Kyle to look at it. So, and that is a fact. I mean, they pay the same rate of tax. Don, do you mind coming up?
Am I wrong, or is there, in the bylaws, is that the town will not accept any more private roads after a certain date?
I'm not aware of that. I don't think I've seen that, and I don't know that we could even weigh in on that. But
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Thought there was.
Beth's on it.
Okay.
we have the most current version online now? 'Cause for a
But on
while
the other
there-
hand, if, you know, if we do approve it,
January 2024.
Don, if we do approve it and it goes to the town hall floor, it's up to the residents at that point.
If you're on the homepage, and you click on the quick links on the side, there's one for the town bylaws.
Okay,
Which takes you to the current one.
perfect.
And the good news is, that was the last one.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, no, sorry. We've got a lot of agenda still.
All right.
Or can they wait for another
Do you
meeting?
want, so we're gonna move on then? You didn't find anything, Beth?
What's
Were
that?
you looking for that, Beth?
It's gonna
Okay.
take too long.
Okay.
Even I can't read that
Okay,
fast.
so we're gonna continue this till Tuesday. You guys are good with that?
Yeah, what time, 7?
7 o'clock. Close the annual town warrant, article number 8.
Yeah, we never opened it, so I guess we don't have to close it at this
Okay.
point. We can address that
We
on
had a
Tuesday.
discussion about it.
Yes.
yeah.
We'll sign agenda number 9, sign the FY26 police and fire insurance,
Yep,
injured on duty renewal.
Yep, this is just insurance from Maya that we have all, you know, for our first responders. There was a slight increase, less than $1,000 over last year's premium, so I would
Okay.
recommend signing.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we sign that.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry, you're looking for a motion. Motion that we go ahead and approve the Maya, what is it, fire and police
Yep,
insurance?
fiscal year 26.
Fiscal year 26 insurance.
Second. I'm looking for a second, Sarah.
Second.
Any discussion?
No. She made the motion, you
Yeah.
seconded.
No,
No, you can't.
I'm nudging you for the second.
I did.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Paperwork's in here.
Acknowledge emergency medical services report. Thank Donna for that. Approve the minutes for 4/29/25.
I did want to call out one thing that was on that report. I don't know if
Okay.
you noticed it, just that we're trending to be about, it's about 5% over last year's cost.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, and last year was a record, so we're gonna go from like 810 to about 858, 860.
I think the other advantage I heard Lori talk about, changing the way that the billing's done and the way the money's held, is maybe chasing some of the unpaid, right, Ron? Can you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, I've talked with Donna and Chief Martell, and there will be a concerted effort to, I guess,
What's the rough number that we're short every year that people are not paying?
With the
Did I hear
write-offs?
roughly like 40,000?
Yeah,
Is
it was
that-
a significant amount of write-offs.
Okay.
And my personal feeling is ComStar is not aggressive enough in pursuing some of those.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we're going to try to address with ComStar. If ComStar doesn't address that, then we can certainly open up to see if we can utilize another...
Collection agency of some kind.
Yeah, in essence, that's what it becomes,
Yeah.
a collector.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will say that Donna, and I'm not sure if Pete was involved in it, but I know Donna's done a survey of some of the other EMS services and the billing agencies that they
comparable?
use. Fundamentally, everyone that she's contacted, which is a number of them, I don't remember exactly how many she said, those that have left ComStar unfortunately have returned to them because
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, because
All right.
in some ways their service is way better than most of their competitors. So I'm not saying that maybe there's not a silver bullet out there somewhere, but the folks in this area have not had good luck with the other services.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Donna. She does a great job on EMS, and I can't even imagine how many, I don't venture to guess how many years she's done it now. I know it's got to be at least 40 or maybe more, so she's been very dedicated, so. I'll have a motion to approve the minutes for,
Motion to approve the minutes as indicated in the agenda.
I'll second that. I'm assuming you're going to abstain. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll entertain a
And by the way,
motion.
you don't have to abstain.
I know.
Okay,
I didn't read them though, so.
fair. That's a good reason.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Jeez, Rich, I don't know, Kadelsky never went this late.
That's for sure, yeah, he got off this one.
Okay, stays. Notes. This can get recycled.
I have a tab sticking out to sign that sheet.
Oh, we have to sign it.
There's summary.
Some of them we've talked about, some of them we just.
Let me have it.
Oh, it's Rich. It's Rich's to sign. There's only one signature, so the chair gets it.
Here, Mark.